Hello guys, welcome to DXD Tales. So in this video, we will see, what if Issei became a dragon Shinigami captain? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dragon's Awakening. The shadow struck faster than Issei Hyodo could track, tearing through his chest with the casual efficiency of a butcher. He felt nothing at first, just a strange disconnect between what his eyes witnessed and what his nerves reported. Then came the cold, spreading through his torso like liquid nitrogen, followed by pain so intense it transcended pain entirely, becoming something elemental and profound. Interesting, the monster hissed, its bone-white mask gleaming beneath Karakura Town's moonlight. Your soul tastes complex, layered, like nothing I've consumed before. Issei tried to speak but produced only a wet, gurgling sound. Blood pooled beneath him on the cracked asphalt, spreading with alarming speed. His vision tunneled, the world's edges darkening as if someone were slowly dimming the lights of reality itself. 17 years. Was that all he would get? 17 unremarkable years culminating in this ignoble end, bleeding out in an empty parking lot at the hands of a creature no one else could even see. The unfairness of it burned hotter than the wound in his chest. No, the thought arrived with unexpected clarity, cutting through the encroaching fog of death. Not yet, not like this. Something stirred within him, ancient, reptilian, and utterly alien to his human consciousness. Heat blossomed where cold had reigned moments before, a molten core igniting behind his sternum. The creature, the hollow, took a step back, its featureless mask somehow conveying confusion. "What is this?" it demanded, voice no longer smug but wary. "What are you?" Issei couldn't answer. His body convulsed as twin forces warred within him, one dragging him toward death, the other refusing to yield. Spiritual pressure erupted from his prone form, cracking the pavement beneath him. Red energy pulsed from his wound, not flowing outward but spiraling inward, as if his body were consuming its own lifeblood to fuel something greater. The hollow screeched, backing away further. "Impossible. You're human. Just a human." Through failing vision, Issei watched a vertical slice appear in the night sky itself, sliding open like a shoji door. A figure stepped through, tall, graceful, clad in black robes that seemed to absorb the surrounding moonlight. In her hand gleamed a sword that radiated cold authority. "Step away from him, hollow." The newcomer's voice cut through the night like tempered steel, feminine but utterly devoid of softness. "You've strayed into territory under my protection, Shinigami." The hollow's body tensed, poised between fight and flight. "This prey is mine by right of discovery." The woman, the Shinigami, didn't bother responding. She moved with liquid precision, her blade tracing a perfect arc through the air before cleaving the hollow's mask in a single stroke. The creature dissolved into particles of spirit energy, its dying shriek echoing across the empty lot. Issei tried to focus on his savior as she approached, but his consciousness was fraying. He caught only impressions. Aristocratic features, violet black hair arranged in an elaborate kenseiken, eyes that held centuries of composure. She knelt beside him, studying his face with clinical detachment that failed to completely mask her surprise. "Curious," she murmured. "You should be dead, yet your spirit pressure." The world tilted as she lifted him with unexpected strength. Through the haze of approaching death, Issei felt her stepping back through the dimensional door, carrying him into a realm he hadn't known existed until this moment. "Hold on," she commanded, her voice the last anchor to consciousness. "The Captain Commander will want to see this." Darkness claimed him, but it wasn't the darkness of death. It was the darkness of transition, of metamorphosis. Within that darkness, something ancient stirred, unfurling scaled wings that had remained dormant for 17 years. The dragon was finally awakening. Miyako Kuchik. I moved through the moonlit corridors of the 4th Division Medical Complex, her steps silent yet purposeful. Behind her immaculate composure, her thoughts churned like troubled waters. 3 days passed since she'd brought the anomaly to Soul Society, 3 days of increasingly bizarre spiritual readings and heated debates among the captains. "You seem preoccupied, Lieutenant Kuchiki." Miyako stopped, turning with measured grace to face Captain Unohana. The healer stood in the doorway of the recovery room, her gentle smile belying the intensity of her gaze. "Captain," Miyako acknowledged with a precise bow. "I was coming to check on the human's condition." "Not entirely human, I think," Hana corrected, her voice soft but leaving no room for disagreement. "Come, see for yourself. He's finally stabilized." The recovery room was dimly lit, spirit energy monitors casting a blue glow across the unconscious form on the bed. Miyako approached cautiously, her hand instinctively resting on her Zanpakuto's hilt. The young man looked deceptively ordinary, messy brown hair, athletic build, features handsome in a conventional way. Only the intricate network of luminescent red lines beneath his skin hinted at the abnormality of his condition. "What is he?" Miyako asked, unable to completely mask her unease. Hana gestured to the monitors. "His spiritual signature contains Shinigami potential, substantial enough that he might have naturally developed powers in time. But there's something else interwoven with it, something I've never encountered before." "Dragon," came a raspy voice from the doorway. Both women turned to see Captain Kuretsuchi's lanky form slouching against the frame, his gold teeth gleaming in the low light. "I've analyzed the Ryutsu samples," the research captain continued, undisguised excitement animating his painted features. "Fascinating case. His soul contains dormant dragon essence, not just spiritual connection but actual draconic Ryutsu integrated at the core level. When the hollow attacked, it triggered both latent Shinigami potential and draconic power simultaneously. The combination should have destroyed him instantly. Yet it didn't," Hana observed. "Hence my fascination. I've submitted a formal request to transfer him to my division for comprehensive study." Kuretsuchi's eyes gleamed with scientific avarice. "Disassembly would provide invaluable data on hybrid soul integration." Miyako felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. "The Captain Commander has not authorized such measures, Captain Kuretsuchi. For now, the subject remains under 4th Division care." The scientist's painted face twisted in irritation. "Your family name doesn't grant you authority over scientific matters, Lieutenant." "This specimen has a name," interrupted a new voice, startling all three Shinigami. The young man on the bed had opened his eyes that now gleamed with amber luminescence, the pupils elongated into reptilian slits. "Issei Hyodo," he continued, his voice stronger than it should have been after days of unconsciousness. "My name is Issei Hyodo. Not subject, not specimen." He sat up with fluid ease, the monitoring equipment protesting as sensors pulled free. "And I'd prefer to remain in one piece, if it's all the same to you." Miyako's hand tightened on her Zanpakuto, but Hana gestured subtly for restraint. He captain approached the bed with calm professionalism. "Mr. Hyodo, you've been unconscious for 3 days. Do you remember what happened to you?" Issei's expression darkened. "The monster. It had a mask, like bone. It attacked me, but then," his brow furrowed as he tried to arrange fractured memories into coherence. "Then she appeared." His gaze shifted to Miyako, recognition flickering across his features. "You killed it. Brought me here." He glanced around the unfamiliar room. "Where exactly is here?" "You're in Soul Society," Hana explained gently. "Specifically, the 4th Division Healing Center." "Soul Society," Issei repeated, testing the words. "That's the afterlife." "One aspect of it," Miyako clarified, studying him closely. His calm acceptance seemed unusual for a human suddenly thrust into the spiritual realm. "The realm where Shinigami dwell. Death gods," Issei translated, a humorless smile touching his lips. "Fitting, I suppose, considering I should be dead." His hand moved to his chest, fingers tracing the spot where the hollow had impaled him. "There's no wound. Your healing capabilities are extraordinary," Kuretsuchi interjected, approaching with unsettling eagerness. "Possibly related to the dragon essence integrated with your soul. If you'd permit me to take just a few samples." "Captain Kuretsuchi," Hana interrupted, her smile unchanged but a sudden chill entering her voice. "Perhaps we should allow our guest to fully regain his bearings before subjecting him to your enthusiasm." The scientist scowled but backed away. "The Captain Commander will want immediate answers about this anomaly. I'll prepare my preliminary findings." With a last hungry look at Issei, he slouched from the room. When he'd gone, Issei exhaled slowly. "He seems Intense. An apt description, Miyako agreed dryly. Captain Kuretsuchi heads our research division. His scientific curiosity often overrides other considerations. Like ethics, Issei suggested, earning a sharp look from the lieutenant. You seem remarkably composed for someone who has just awakened in another realm, she observed, her tone carrying subtle accusation. Issei met her gaze directly. Trust me, I'm screaming internally, but panicking won't help me understand what's happening. He flexed his fingers, watching with fascination as faint red energy shimmered beneath his skin. Something's changed inside me, something fundamental. You are a mystery, Issei Hyodo, Unohana said. One that has already captured the attention of Soul Society's highest authorities. The Captain Commander has requested your presence once you regained consciousness. The Captain Commander, Genryusai Shigekuni Yamamoto, Miyako explained. Supreme Commander of the Gote 13, the 3rd N protection squads that defend Soul Society. His authority here is absolute. And if I don't want to meet him? Issei asked, testing boundaries. Miyako's expression cooled several degrees. That option is not available. You are an unprecedented anomaly, a living human manifesting both Shinigami potential and draconic energy. Your very existence raises questions that require answers. Issei held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. I have questions too. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, discovering he'd been dressed in a simple white yukata. I'm guessing proper clothes would be too much to ask. Unohana gestured to a folded black uniform on a nearby chair. Standard Shinigami attire. It should suffice for your audience with the Captain Commander. I'll return in 15 minutes to escort you, Miyako stated, turning to leave. Lieutenant Kuchiki, Issei called, stopping her at the threshold. When she glanced back, he offered a bow that was surprisingly correct in form. Thank you for saving my life. Something flickered across her composed features, surprise, perhaps, or the faintest trace of approval. But it vanished quickly, replaced by professional detachment. I was performing my duty, she replied coolly, nothing more. As she departed, Issei exchanged a look with Captain Unohana, whose gentle smile had taken on a knowing quality. Lieutenant T. Kuchiki comes from one of Soul Society's 4 noble houses, the healer explained. The Kuchiki family places great emphasis on propriety and emotional restraint. I noticed, Issei said, picking up the black uniform. Is everyone here so intense? Unohana's laugh was surprisingly warm. Soul Society contains all types, Mr. Hyodo. You'll find we're as varied as humans in our temperaments and personalities, perhaps more so. Given that many of us have lived for centuries. Centuries. Issei paused in the act of examining the uniform. How old is Lieutenant Kuchiki, if you don't mind my asking? Old enough to have mastered her Zanpakuto's Bankai form nearly 70 years ago, Unohana replied, moving toward the door. I'll leave you to change. And Mr. Hyodo. She paused, her expression growing serious. When you meet the Captain Commander, I advise complete honesty. Yamamoto has led the Gote 13 for over 2,000 years. Very little escapes his notice. Left alone, Issei Street. ARED at the black Shihakusho in his hands, reality finally beginning to sink in. Soul Society, Shinigami, Dragon Essence. His life had irreversibly transformed in the span of a single night, setting H. I am on a path he couldn't begin to comprehend. Yet beneath the confusion and anxiety, another emotion pulsed, a growing exhilaration, a sense of rightness, as if his soul had been waiting 17 years for precisely this moment. Dragon Essence, he murmured, watching the red energy shimmer beneath his skin in response to the words. What exactly does that mean for me? The energy pulsed once, strongly, like a silent answer to an unformed question. Whatever was happening to him, Issei suspected he was only seeing the first ripples of a much larger transformation. 15 minutes later, dressed in the black uniform of a Shinigami, he squared his shoulders and prepared to face the judgment of gods. The Captain Commander's meeting hall stretched before Issei like a corridor designed to intimidate. Massive wooden pillars lined the approach to a raised dais where a single figure sat in meditative stillness, spiritual pressure radiating from him in palpable waves. Behind him stood 2 rows of figures, 13 positions. Though Issei counted only 10 actually filled, Lieutenant Kuchiki walked 2 precise steps ahead of him, her back straight as a blade. She had barely spoken during their journey through the labyrinthine passages of Seraite, responding to his attempts at conversation with minimal courtesy. Now, reaching the center of the hall, she knelt formally, bowing her head. "Captain Commander, I present Issei Hyodo as requested." The ancient Shinigami opened his eyes that held the weight of millennia, burning with contained power that made Issei instinctively want to step back. Only pride kept him rooted to the spot. "Approach, Issei Hyodo," Yamamoto commanded, his voice like stone grinding against stone. Issei moved forward, conscious of multiple gazes evaluating his every movement. He stopped at what felt like a respectful distance and bowed, deeper than necessary, buying himself precious seconds to compose his thoughts. "Rise," the commander ordered. "Do you understand why you have been brought before the captains of the Gote 13? "I'm an anomaly," Issei answered straightforwardly. "Lieutenant Kuchiki explained that my condition is unprecedented." Yamamoto nodded slightly. "Captain Unohana, your assessment." A serene-looking woman stepped forward, the healer from earlier. "The subject demonstrates extraordinary spiritual potential that fall OWS Shinigami patterns but is fundamentally altered by the presence of draconic energy. His body has adapted to contain both forces, suggesting a predisposition that predates his birth. In simple terms, I believe he was born to be what he is becoming." "And what exactly is that?" asked a white-haired captain whose appearance suggested youth despite the power radiating from him. "That remains unclear, Captain Hitsugaya," Unohana replied. "We lack historical precedent." "Not entirely," interjected a captain with long white hair and a gentle countenance. "The archives contain references to Indiva duels bridging multiple spiritual domains. They were exceedingly rare, perhaps one per millennium, but not without precedent." "Captain Yukataki has consulted the restricted historical texts," Yamamoto confirmed. "While there is mention of dragon-touched souls in our oldest records, none manifested Shinigami abilities simultaneously. Which makes him a fascinating research opportunity," added Kuritsuchi, his painted face animated with scientific hunger. "My division could—" "No," Issei interrupted, his voice firm despite the intimidating assembly. "I'm not volunteering to be dissected." A heavy silence fell across the hall. Several captains exchanged glances, clearly surprised by his directness. "You misunderstand your position," Yamamoto said, spiritual pressure intensifying subtly. "You street, and before the governing authority of Soul Society. Your cooperation is not optional." Issei felt sweat beading on his forehead but held his ground. "With respect, Captain Commander, I was brought here without consent after being attacked by a hollow. I'm grateful for the medical care, but I remain a living human with rights to my own body and future." A short, fierce-looking captain with spiked hair barked a laugh. "Kid's got nerve, I'll give him that." "Nerve or foolishness," Captain Zaraki countered another, this one wearing an elaborate hairpiece and aristocratic expression that reminded Issei of Lieutenant Kuchiki. The boy fails to grasp the significance of his condition. The integration of dragon essence with Shinigami potential creates unprecedented concerns for spiritual stability across realms. "Captain Kuchiki raises a valid point," agreed a fox-faced captain with silver hair. "Dragons have historically remained separate from Soul Society affairs for good reason. Their ritual composition operates on fundamentally different principles from our own. Integration risks complications." Issei looked between them, frustration building. "Could someone please explain what you mean by dragon essence? Everyone keeps talking about me like I'm some kind of hybrid, but until 3 days ago, I was just a normal high school student." "Were you?" This came from a captain wearing a straw hat and pink kimono draped over his shoulders. His expression was deceptively relaxed, but his eyes missed nothing. "No unusual incidents throughout your life? No moments where you exhibited unusual strength, resilience, or awareness?" Issei opened his mouth to deny it, then hesitated as memories surfaced, childhood fevers that burned hot enough to worry doctors but never seemed to harm him. The time he'd fallen from a third-story window and walked away without a scratch, his uncanny ability to sense danger moments before it materialized. "I had some experiences that might qualify," he admitted reluctantly. "But nothing that suggested this. Dragon essence isn't something acquired," explained Captain Yukataki kindly. "It's integrated at the soul level, present from conception. In your case, it appears to have remained largely dormant until the hollow attack triggered both it and your Shinigami potential simultaneously. The question now, Yamamoto stated, is what to do with you. Kuretsuchi stepped forward eagerly. My division is prepared to. I volunteer to train him, interrupted a female captain Issei hadn't noticed before, dark-skinned, purple-haired, with an air of dangerous playfulness. The boy needs to understand his abilities before anyone starts poking at him with needles, Mayuri. Captain Shihoin, Yamamoto acknowledged. Your division specializes in covert operations, not training anomalies. She shrugged fluidly. True, but I'm the fastest captain in Soul Society. If his draconic side goes berserk, I'm best equipped to subdue him without permanent damage. Her golden eyes flicked to Issei, evaluating. Besides, I'm curious what he can do. Dragons were formidable opponents during the ancient conflicts. Conflicts, Issei repeated, seizing on the word. There were wars between Shinigami and dragons. An uncomfortable silence fell across the chamber. Captains exchanged meaningful glances, and Issei realized he'd stumbled onto something significant. History best discussed another time, Captain Yukitaki said diplomatically. For now, we must decide your immediate future, Issei Hyodo. The boy requires comprehensive monitoring, Captain Kuchiki stated flatly. His unpredictable nature presents potential danger to Seraite. Agreed, Yamamoto said. However, Captain Shihoin's suggestion has merit. Training may help stabilize his condition while revealing the extent of his capabilities. He turned his ancient gaze on Issei. You will remain in Soul Society for assessment and training. Attempts to leave will be considered. Hostile actions and dealt with accordingly. Issei felt a flash of indignation. What about my family? My life in the human world? Lieutenant Kuchiki will arrange appropriate memory modifications for those who know you. Yamamoto replied impassively. As far as the human world is concerned, Issei Hyodo will have transferred to a school overseas. You can't just. Issei began, but stopped as dragon essence within him surged in response to his anger. Red energy rippled visibly beneath his skin, and several captains tensed, hands moving to their zanpakuto. Control, Yamamoto commanded, his spiritual pressure intensifying to oppressive levels. Demonstrate that you can master your power, or we will be forced to contain it for you. Issei closed his eyes, drawing deep breaths as he struggled to calm the foreign energy coursing through him. It responded like a semi-sentient force, reacting to his emotions but not fully under conscious control. After several tense moments, the visible manifestations subsided. Interesting, murmured Kuretsuchi. The draconic energy responds to emotional triggers rather than structured commands. Primal, instinctual, all the more reason for proper training, Captain Shihoin argued. Give him to me for 1 month. If he shows no progress, you can lock him in Mayuri's lab until the end of time. Yamamoto considered this, then nodded once. 1 month. Captain Shihoin will oversee your training, with Captain Unohana monitoring your physical condition. You will be housed within the 2nd Division compound and restricted from unauthorized movement through Seraite. He struck his staff once against the wooden floor, the sound reverberating with finality. This council is adjourned. Captain Shihoin, I expect weekly progress reports. As the captains began to disperse, Issei stood rooted in place, the reality of his situation sinking in. 1 month to prove himself worthy of freedom rather than endless experimentation. 1 month to master our powers he didn't understand and hadn't asked for. Well, came a cheerful voice beside him as Captain Shihoin appeared without warning, moving faster than his eyes could track. You certainly know how to make an entrance to Soul Society. Most newcomers don't manage to worry the entire Captain's Council on their first day. I didn't ask for any of this, Issei said quietly. Few of us ask for our destinies, Issei Hyodo. She studied him with golden eyes that seemed to see layers beneath his skin. But we're stuck with them regardless. The question is what you'll do with yours. Do I have options beyond being a lab rat or your student? Her grin was quick and feral. Not currently, no, but play your cards right, and options have a way of multiplying. She nodded toward the exit. We start at dawn tomorrow. I suggest you get some rest. You'll need it. As she vanished in a blur of movement, Lieutenant Kuchiki approached, her expression unreadable. I've been instructed to escort you to your quarters, she said formally. Please follow me. As they walked through the corridors of Seraite, Issei studied his guide's profile. You're related to Captain Kuchiki, aren't you? The resemblance is striking. He is the head of the Kuchiki clan, she confirmed without looking at him. My cousin. And you're his lieutenant? No, I serve as lieutenant in the 6th Division, but under the 3rd seat. Kuchiki captains are prohibited from having family members as direct subordinates to prevent favoritism. That seems rigid. It is tradition, she replied, as if that explained everything. After a moment, she added, you were unwise to challenge the captain commander. So I should have volunteered to be Kuritsuchi's science project. You should have shown appropriate deference. CE to those with the power to determine your fate, she corrected. Captain Shihoin has offered you a rare opportunity. Few receive personal training from a captain of the Gote 13. What's she like? As a teacher, I mean. Something close to sympathy flickered across Miyako's features. Ruthless, brilliant, unpredictable. She will push you beyond what you believe possible, then demand more. They arrived at a small but well-appointed room within the 2nd Division compound. These will be your quarters, Miyako explained. Meals will be provided at standard times. Do not attempt to leave the compound unescorted. As she turned to leave, Issei called after her. Lieutenant Kuchiki, what's your personal opinion? Am I a threat to Soul Society? She paused, considering him with those inscrutable violet eyes. You are an unknown quantity, Issei Hyodo. In Soul Society's experience, unknown quantities rarely remain benign. With that cold assessment, she departed, leaving Issei alone with thoughts that churned like storm clouds. Outside his window, Soul Society stretched in unfamiliar splendor, a world of spirits and death gods now serving as his prison. Or perhaps, a darker voice whispered from the draconic depths of his soul, his kingdom in waiting. Dawn arrived with the subtle grace of a sledgehammer as Issei's door slid open and a bucket of ice water drenched him where he slept. Rise and shine, Dragon Boy. Captain Shihoin called cheerfully. Training begins now. Gasping and sputtering, Issei bolted upright, the thin sleeping mat soaked beneath him. What the hell? Lesson 1, Shihoin said, lounging against the doorframe with casual elegance that belied her actions. Always be prepared. If I'd been an assassin, you'd be dead. Again, she tossed a bundle of cloth at him. Training gear. You have 3 minutes to be in the courtyard. Don't make me come looking for you. She vanished, leaving Issei dripping and disoriented. The training gear proved to be a sleeve-less black uniform similar to the standard Shinigami Shihakusho but designed for increased mobility. Cursing under his breath, he changed quickly and made his way to the courtyard, where Shihoin waited alongside a tall, muscular man with braided hair and an intricate tattoo covering his back. 2 minutes, 40 seconds, she noted approvingly. Not bad for a beginner. This is Akira Hideyoshi, 3rd seat of the 2nd Division. He'll be assisting with your physical training. Akira bowed formally, though his expression suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. Honored to assist, Captain. Don't look so thrilled, Akira. Shihoin teased. Our guest won't bite, probably. She turned to Issei. Before we begin, I need to understand what we're working with. What combat experience do you have? I took karate for a few years as a kid, Issei admitted. Nothing serious. Any weapons training. Unless you count kendo in middle school gym class, no. What about your spiritual pressure? Any conscious control? Issei shook his head. Until 3 days ago, I didn't know spiritual pressure existed. Shihoin sighed dramatically. So we're starting from scratch. Wonderful. She exchanged a glance with Akira. Let's begin with basics then. Spiritual pressure is the manifestation of your Raryoku, your spiritual energy. All souls possess some measure of it, but Shinigami learn to harness and direct it consciously. She extended her hand, palm up, and a sphere of golden energy materialized above it. Visualization and intent are key. Your unique circumstance complicates matters, since you re-channeling 2 distinct spiritual signatures simultaneously. The dragon essence, Issei said. Exactly. Dragons manipulate spirit energy differently than Shinigami. Where we focus on precision and control, dragons emphasize raw power and elemental affinity. She nodded to Akira, who produced a wooden bakken from a nearby rack. We'll start with physical conditioning to help you become aware of your body's energy pathways. Akira, If you would demonstrate the first form. What followed was 3 hours of grueling physical training, katas that seemed simple until Shihoin demanded they be performed while maintaining specific breathing patterns and energy focuses. By mid-morning, Issei's muscles screamed in protest, sweat drenching his training uniform. Better than expected, Shihoin commented as he completed the 20th repetition of a particularly demanding sequence. Your body adapts quickly. That's the dragon blood working in your favor. Shinigami must train for decades to achieve physical conditioning that comes naturally to draconic entities. Lucky me, Issei panted, hands braced on his knees as he caught his breath. So when do I get a sword like yours? A Zanpakuto? Shihoin raised an eyebrow. That depends entirely on you. A Zanpakuto is the externalized manifestation of a Shinigami's power, a reflection of their soul. Most Shinigami train for years before manifesting one. But I'm not most Shinigami. Issei pointed out. No, she agreed, studying him thoughtfully. You're not, which is why we're going to try something unconventional. She nodded to Akira. Bring the suppression chamber equipment. We're moving to phase 2. The suppression chamber proved to be a heavily reinforced training room deep beneath the 2nd Division compound. Its walls were inscribed with complex keto seals that dampened spiritual energy, preventing uncontrolled outbursts from affecting the surrounding area. This chamber was designed for Captain-class Shinigami to practice high-level techniques safely. Shihoin explained as Akira set up various monitoring devices around the perimeter. We're going to force an accelerated manifestation of your powers. Issei eyed the equipment warily. That sounds dangerous. Extremely, she agreed cheerfully. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't attempt this with a beginner. But your situation is time-sensitive, and your HYB rid nature may respond differently to conventional training methods anyway. What exactly will this involve? Shihoin's expression grew serious. I'm going to push you to your limits, physically, mentally, spiritually. When a soul faces true mortal peril, its deepest powers often manifest as a survival response. That's how many Shinigami discover their Zanpakuto's true nature. You're going to try to kill me, Issei translated. A chill running through him despite the sweat of exertion. I'm going to make you believe I'm trying to kill you, she corrected. The distinction is important. She nodded to Akira, who bowed and exited the chamber, sealing the heavy door behind him. Remove your shirt and kneel in the center circle. Issei complied, increasingly uneasy as Shihoin began drawing MP Lex patterns on the floor around him with what appeared to be liquid spirit energy. This is a modified version of a technique used to help Shinigami communicate with their Zanpakuto spirits, she explained, completing an intricate sigil. I've adapted it to accommodate your dual nature. If successful, it will force both aspects of your power to manifest simultaneously rather than fighting each other for dominance. And if unsuccessful, her golden eyes met his without flinching. Then Captain Kuretsuchi gets his research subject after all. Before Issei could protest, Shihoin pressed her palm against his chest. Directly over his heart. Bakudo number 63. Internal binding, she intoned, her voice taking on a resonant quality that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. Pain exploded through Issei's body, not external but deeply internal, as if every cell were being independently compressed. He tried to scream but found his voice locked, his body frozen in kneeling position as spirit GY coursed through his system in chaotic waves. Your body contains two fundamental spiritual signatures in opposition. Shihoin's voice penetrated the haze of agony. Shinigami energy seeks order, precision, directed purpose. Dragon essence craves freedom, power, dominion. They cannot coexist passively. You must force them into active harmony. The pain intensified, red energy erupting from Issei's skin in violent bursts that scorched the air. Through tear-blurred vision, he saw Shihoin maintaining the keto seal with one hand while the other moved in complex patterns, weaving additional bindings to contain the volatile energy. Choose, she commanded. Will you be consumed by these conflicting forces, or will you master them? Will you become their victim, or their wielder? Something was happening inside him, a shattering, a reconfiguring, a transformation that transcended physical form. Issei felt himself falling inward, consciousness splitting and refracting like light through a prism. Around him, the chamber's suppression seals began to crack, spirit energy too powerful to be fully contained. Distantly, He heard Akira's voice over an intercom. Captain, the containment field is failing. Spiritual pressure readings are exceeding safety parameters. Continue the procedure, Shihoin ordered, sweat beading on her brow as she fought to maintain control. He's close to breakthrough. Issei could no longer distinguish between physical and spiritual pain, both had merged into a singular experience of transcendent agony. In that moment of ultimate pressure, something within him surrendered, not to defeat, but to integration. I accept, he thought, or perhaps spoke aloud. Both aspects, both powers, I claim them as my own. The world exploded in light and sound, a concussive blast of pure spiritual energy that threw Shihoin backwards and shattered every monitoring device in the chamber. When the dust settled, Issei remained kneeling in the center circle, but profoundly transformed. Crimson scales covered his exposed torso in a pattern resembling armor, fading at the edges into normal skin. His eyes glowed with inner fire, pupils elongated into draconic slits. Most significantly, a sword had materialized before him, embedded in the stone floor, its blade obsidian black with a crimson edge that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, its guard shaped like unfurled dragon wings. Impressive, Shihoin murmured, picking herself up with a wince. I expected results, but nothing this dramatic. Issei reached for the sword, his movements dreamlike. As his fingers closed around the hilt, knowledge flooded his consciousness, not through words but through instinctive understanding, as if he'd always possessed this weapon, always known its nature. Enryu, he whispered, the name emerging unbidden from his lips. Crimson Dragon, your Zanpakuto, Shihoin confirmed, approaching cautiously. Manifested on the first attempt. The captains will be concerned. Issei rose to his feet, the sword moving with him as if it were an extension of his arm. The scaled transformation began to recede, scales sinking beneath his skin until only faint red patterns remained, like luminesque end tattoos tracing his spiritual pathways. How do you feel? Shihoin asked, studying him with professional assessment and personal curiosity. Complete, Issei answered honestly. For the first time in my life, I feel whole. He examined the blade with wonder. Is this normal, to manifest a Zanpakuto so quickly? Nothing about your situation is normal, she replied dryly. Most Shinigami TRA in for years to achieve what you just did in minutes. The dragon essence must have accelerated the process exponentially. She circled him, examining the residual energy patterns. The integration appears stable, at least for now. The real test will be whether you can maintain control under combat conditions. As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the compound. Shihoin tensed, head tilting as she listened to a communication device in her ear. Hollow attack, she announced, expression sharpening. Multiple entities, approaching from the West District. Perfect timing. She fixed Issei with a challenging gaze. Ready for your field test, Dragon Boy. Issei should have felt exhausted after the ordeal he'd just endured. Instead, energy thrummed through him, Enryu pulsing, in harmony with his heartbeat as if eager for battle. Lead the way, Captain. The western district of Rukongai burned. 3 massive hollows, each larger than a 2-story building, rampaged through the streets, devouring souls and destroying structures with indiscriminate violence. 2nd Division Shinigami fought to contain the threat, their Zanpakuto flashing in the light of burning buildings as they struggled to protect fleeing civilians. Issei arrived alongside Captain Shihoin and Lieutenant Kuchiki, who had joined them en route. The lieutenant's eyes widened fractionally at the sight of Enryu in Issei's grip, but she offered no comment, her attention focused on the battle before them. Assessment, Shihoin demanded of a blood-spattered officer who rushed to meet them. 3 Ajukas-class hollows, the officer reported. They breached the outer perimeter through a localized garganta. We've evacuated most civilians, but we're having difficulty containing the largest entity. Casualties, 12 confirmed, Captain. 8 civilians, 4 unseated officers. Shihoin's expression hardened. Lieutenant Kuchiki, coordinate with 4th Division for medical response. I'll handle the 2 smaller hollows. Issei. She turned to him with a calculating look, consider this your examination. The large one is yours. Captain, Miyako protested, he has no combat experience with no time like the present to acquire some. Shihoin cut her off. Besides, if he fails, you're right here to clean up the mess. With a wicked grin, she vanished in a blur of shunpo, reappearing moments later in the midst of battle. Miyako fixed Issei with a cold stare. If your recklessness endangers additional lives, I will cut you down myself. Noted, Issei replied, his attention already focused on his assigned target, a monstrous hollow with a bull-like mask and multiple thrashing limbs. Even from a distance, he could sense its malevolent hunger, a spiritual pressure that radiated corrupted power. Drawing on his newborn connection to Enryu, Issei launched himself forward with unexpected speed, covering ground faster than humanly possible. The hollow sensed his approach, turning to face high M with a roar that shook the surrounding buildings. One massive arm swung toward him like a wrecking ball. Instinct took over. Issei vaulted the limb, Enryu trailing crimson energy as he rotated in midair. The blade biting deep into the hollow's flesh. The creature bellowed in pain, spiritual pressure flaring violently as it retaliated with multiple strikes. Issei wove between the attacks with preternatural agility, his body responding to dangers before his conscious mind processed them. Each movement felt like a dance he'd rehearsed for years rather than techniques he'd never performed before. Enryu guided him as much as he guided it, the Zanpakuto's spirit communicating through intuitive flashes rather than words. There, weakness in the right shoulder joint. Strike pattern Alpha 3 effective against multi-limbed opponents. Ryutsu concentration indicates mask as the primary target. He didn't question how he knew these things. The knowledge flowed through him like blood, ancient and instinctive. As he fought, Issei felt the dragon essence surging beneath his skin, enhancing his strength and speed beyond typical Shinigami parameters. Red energy cloaked his blade, leaving burning afterimages as he struck. From across the battlefield, Miyako observed with growing astonishment. The awkward, defiant human from the council chamber had transformed into something else entirely, a warrior moving with lethal precision. Spiritual pressure radiating in controlled waves that matched the rhythm of his attacks. His fighting style blended orthodox Shinigami swordsmanship with something wilder, more primal, dragon-influenced techniques that emphasized overwhelming force and aerial maneuvers. Impressive, isn't he? Shihoin commented, appearing beside her after dispatching one of her assigned hollows. Raw talent like that comes along once in a century. It isn't his talent that concerns me, Miyako replied. It's the source of his power. The dragon influence is growing stronger. That's the point, Shihoin countered. Integration rather than suppression. The captains who want to lock him away are fighting against nature itself. She nodded toward Issei as he executed a complex aerial attack. Better to guide the river than dam it. Across the battlefield, Issei had maneuvered the hollow into a vulnerable position, systematically disabling its secondary limbs while avoiding its increasingly desperate attacks. The creature, sensing defeat approaching, gathered corrupted spirit energy for a final, devastating attack. "Sero incoming," shouted a nearby Shinigami, diving for cover. Issei faced the gathering energy without flinching. As the crimson beam of concentrated spiritual power erupted from the hollow's mouth, he raised Enryu in a guard position, red energy swirling around the blade. "Reflect," he commanded, the word emerging not from conscious thought but from communion with his Zanpakuto. Enryu's blade split the Sero like a prism divides light, redirecting the energy into multiple streams that carved furrows into the ground around him but left him untouched at the center. Using the momentary advantage, Issei launched himself directly at the hollow's mask, Enryu raised for the killing blow. The blade connected with a sound like shattering glass, cleaving the mask in two perfect halves. The hollow dissolved into particles of purified spirit energy, its corrupted soul released to the cycle of rebirth. Issei landed in a crouch, breathing heavily as the battle rush began to fade. Around him, Shinigami stared with expressions ranging from awed to wariness. He rose slowly, Enryu still pulsing with residual energy in his grip. "Well done," Shihoin said, appearing beside him. "A bit flashy for my taste, but effective." "I just knew what to do," Issei admitted, looking down at his Zanpakuto with wonder. "Enryu guided me." "That's how it works when the connection is strong," she confirmed. "Your Zanpakuto is an extension of your soul, after all." Her expression grew more serious. "Though most Shinigami require years of communion to achieve the level of synchronization you just demonstrated." Miyako approached, her Zanpakuto sheathed but her posture remaining vigilant. "The district is secured," she reported formally. 4th Division has arrived to tend the wounded. Excellent. Please inform the Captain Commander that our training experiment yielded results sooner than anticipated. Shihoin's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. I believe we have our answer regarding Issei Hyodo's potential. Miyako's gaze flickered to Issei, her expression inscrutable. I will report what I observed, she said carefully. Both the effectiveness of his combat abilities and the unusual manifestation of his power. After she departed, Issei turned to Shihoin. She doesn't trust me. Lieutenant Kuchiki trusts very few people, the captain replied with a shrug. It's nothing personal. The Kuchiki family has served as guardians of Soul Society tradition for millennia. Anything that challenges established order makes them uneasy. And I definitely qualify as a challenge to the established order, Issei surmised. You have no idea, Shihoin said, a predatory smile playing across her features. Now that you've manifested a Zanpakuto, things are about to get much more interesting. She nodded toward the horizon, where the imposing structure of Seraite dominated the skyline. The captains will want a new assessment immediately. Are you ready to face them again? Issei looked down at Enryu, feeling the sword's spirit resonating with his own, a presence that was neither Holy Shinigami nor Holy Dragon, but something unique and powerful. Let them assess, he said with newfound confidence. I'm ready to show them exactly what I can become. As they turned toward Seraite, neither noticed the slender figure watching from a nearby rooftop, a woman with calculating eyes and a small, satisfied smile. She observed Issei for several long moments before vanishing into a portal that rippled like water, leaving no trace of her presence behind. In the Soul Society archives, deep within a restricted section few were authorized to access, an ancient text glowed briefly. Words inscribing themselves onto a previously blank page. The Dragon Soul Convergence has begun. Chapter 2. Division 13. Azure twilight cloaked Seraite in song. Beer hues as Issei stood before the imposing gates of the 13th Division compound. 4 weeks had passed since his arrival in Soul Society, 4 weeks of rigorous training, political maneuvering, and increasingly complicated entanglements. The ornate wooden sign bearing the division's insignia hung slightly askew, a subtle reflection of the disarray that awaited him within. Having second thoughts, Captain Yukitake asked gently, his frail appearance belying the power Issei knew he possessed. No one would blame you. Division 13 has challenges that would daunt even experienced leaders. Issei squared his shoulders. I've never run from a challenge. Indeed not, Yukitake agreed with a slight smile. Your performance these past weeks has been remarkable by any standard. Still, interim division leadership is substantially different from combat training. The gates creaked open at Yukitake's gesture, revealing a courtyard where perhaps 30 Shinigami had assembled in ragged formation. Their expressions ranged from openly hostile to cautiously curious as they examined their supposed new leader, a human-turned-hybrid who'd spent less than a month in Soul Society. Shinigami of the 13th Division, Yukitake announced, his typically gentle voice carrying surprising authority. By order of the Captain Commander, Issei Hyodo will serve as your acting captain until further notice. He has demonstrated exceptional aptitude in combat, strategic thinking, and spiritual development. I expect you to afford him the respect his position demands. A murmur rippled through the assembled officers. At the forefront, a muscular man with a scarred face and lieutenant's insignia made no effort to hide his disgust. Captain, the lieutenant began, voice dripping with barely contained insubordination, with respect. Division 13 has proud traditions spanning centuries, placing an untested outsider in command. As the Captain Commander's decision, Lieutenant Kano, Yukitake interjected smoothly. One I fully support after witnessing Issei-san's capabilities firsthand. His kind expression didn't waver, but something in his tone silenced further protest. The division briefing materials await in the captain's office. I'll leave you to become acquainted with your new command. With a supportive nod to Issei and a meaningful look at the lieutenant, Yukitake departed, leaving behind a palpable tension that thickened the air like approaching thunder. Issei surveyed the division members, conscious of 30 pairs of eyes evaluating his every movement. Enryu hummed quietly at his hip, responding to his elevated heart rate. He'd faced hollows, endured Captain Shihoin's brutal training regimen, and stood his ground before the assembled might of the Captain's Council, yet somehow this moment felt more pivotal than any previous challenge. Dismissed to regular duties, Lieutenant Kano barked before Issei could speak. Section leaders, status reports on my desk by evening bell. As the Shinigami dispersed, Kano turned to Issei with undisguised contempt. The captain's office is this way, unless you require an escort, sir. Issei matched the lieutenant's gaze without flinching. After you, Lieutenant. I'm eager to review those briefing materials Captain Yukitake mentioned. The captain's office reflected its long vacancy, meticulously maintained yet bearing an unmistakable emptiness. Dust-free shelves lined with regulatory manuals, a large desk positioned to view the training grounds through latticed windows, and walls adorned with calligraphy extolling virtues of discipline and honor. The space felt like a museum exhibit rather than a functional workspace. Division records, personnel files, mission parameters, and incident reports, Kano said, gesturing to neatly stacked documents on the desk. I assume you can read them. I assume you can adjust your attitude, Lieutenant. Issei countered mildly, settling into the chair behind the desk. As ins. Uberdonation standard practice in Division 13. Kano's jaw tightened visibly. Our division has been without a permanent captain for 18 months, sir. During that time, I have maintained OP rations according to Soul Society regulations while training new recruits, managing hollow suppression in our assigned sectors, and submitting weekly status reports to the Captain Commander. His scar, red face twisted in poorly concealed resentment. Forgive me if I don't immediately genuflect before someone who hadn't heard of Shinigami a month ago. Issei studied the man before him, recognizing the injured pride beneath the hostility. A career soldier watching command go to an outsider, he might have reacted similarly in Kano's position. I didn't ask for this assignment, Lieutenant, Issei said honestly. But here we are. I need your experience and knowledge of division operations. The division needs leadership with the authority to implement necessary changes. We can work against each other and fail, or work together and succeed. He met the lieutenant's gaze directly. Your choice. For a long moment, Kano remained silent, internal conflict evident in his rigid posture. Finally, he gave a curt nod that fell well short of acceptance but at least acknowledged the reality of their situation. Division 13 is responsible for spiritual anomaly investigation and Eastern District hollow suppression, Kano stated. Professionalism overriding personal feelings. Currently, we're understaffed by 38%, with 23 unseated officers, 4 seated officers excluding myself. And no third or fourth seat appointed. Understaffed why? Issei asked, opening the personnel file. Reassignment requests, Kano replied bluntly. When a division remains without permanent leadership, ambitious officers transfer to advance their careers. All we've kept are the dedicated, the underqualified, or those lacking connections to secure placement elsewhere. The island of misfit toys, Issei murmured. Scanning the roster. Sir. Nothing. Human reference. Issei closed the file, decision forming. Show me the division grounds and introduce me to the seated officers. And to personally assess our capabilities before reviewing mission parameters. Surprise flickered briefly across Kano's features, quickly masked by professional detachment. As you wish. The training arena should be occupied by 5th Seat Matsuda's combat instruction class at this hour. As they walked through the division compound, Issei observed with growing concern the subtle signs of neglect. Training equipment showing excessive wear, gardens overgrown in sections, recruitment posters faded by prolonged sun exposure. Nothing egregiously deficient, but a pattern suggesting gradual decline rather than maintenance. Lieutenant, Issei began carefully, your service maintaining division operations is commendable. No criticism intended, but I'm curious why certain aspects of the compound have been deprioritized. Kano's shoulders tensed. Resource allocation, sir. With reduced personnel, we've focused on essential functions, patrol rotation, hollow response, administrative requirements. Aesthetic maintenance was deemed secondary. I see, Issei replied, noting the defensive undercurrent in Kano's explanation. The lieutenant was hiding something, though whether from shame or more calculated motives remained unclear. The training arena revealed another dimension of Division 13's troubles. Perhaps 15 Shinigami practiced basic sword forms under the lackluster supervision of a thin, nervous-looking officer who appeared thoroughly out of his depth. Their movements lacked precision, discipline, and, most concerningly, enthusiasm. Fifth Seat Matsuda, Kano announced with poorly concealed resignation. Combat instructor. Matsuda startled visibly at their approach, nearly dropping his demonstration blade. Lieutenant, I wasn't informed you'd be. His gaze landed on Issei, eyes widening in recognition. As this, acting Captain Hyodo, Kano confirmed. Here to assess division capabilities. Captain, an honor, sir. Matsuda bowed repeatedly, sweat beading on his forehead. We're conducting basic form drills as scheduled. The recruits are showing marked improvement in. Their form is terrible, Issei interrupted quietly, observation overriding courtesy. Alpha are gripping their zanpakudo incorrectly, their stances lack stability, and none are executing the movements with sufficient commitment to be effective in actual combat. Silence fell across the T. Raining ground as the practicing Shinigami froze, attention riveted on the exchange. Matsuda paled. Sir, with limited personnel resources, our training program has been somewhat abbreviated. Show me, Issei said, unclipping Enryu from his sash. Demonstrate the form you're teaching. The fifth seat's anxiety visibly intensified. Sir, execute the form, fifth seat Matsuda, as you would demonstrate for your students. Swallowing hard, Matsuda raised his zanpakudo and proceeded through a sequence of strikes and blocks that might have appeared adequate to untrained observers but revealed fundamental flaws to anyone with genuine combat experience. His weight distribution was inconsistent, his transitions between movements hesitant, his control of the blade's path imprecise. Issei observed silently, understanding dawning. The division's problems ran deeper than staffing shortages or leadership vacancy. The blind were leading the blind, with inadequately trained officers instructing new recruits, perpetuating and amplifying deficiencies with each generation. When Matsuda finished, Issei nodded thoughtfully. Thank you, fifth seat. You've been candid in your demonstration, which I appreciate. He turned to address the assembled Shinigami. Training is suspended for today. Tomorrow morning, all division members, seated and unseated, will assemble here for combat assessment. Attendance is mandatory, sir. Kano interjected. The patrol rotation will be adjusted accordingly, Issei completed. I'll coordinate with 9th Division to cover our sectors during the assessment period. As muttering spread among the Shinigami, Issei raised Enryu, silencing the whispers with the simple gesture. Division 13 has been neglected, undersupported, and allowed to deteriorate while performing essential duties for Seoul Society's security. That ends today. He returned Enryu to his sash with deliberate calm. I'm not concerned with your backgrounds, your academy rankings, or your previous performance evaluations. Starting tomorrow, everyone begins with a clean slate. Demonstrate commitment, show improvement, and you'll receive the training and support needed to excel. Choose otherwise, and transfer requests will be approved without prejudice. His gaze swept across their faces, noting the spectrum of reactions from skepticism to cautious hope. Division 13 investigates anomalies and protects the boundary between worlds. Our duties require flexibility, intelligence, and unconventional approaches, qualities Seoul Society desperately needs but often undervalues. We will become specialists in the unexpected, experts in adaptation. For the first time since his arrival, Issei sensed a subtle shift in the atmosphere, not acceptance, not yet, but perhaps the first fragile tendril of potential loyalty. Dismissed, he concluded. Lieutenant Kano, let's continue our tour. As they departed the training ground, Kano maintained professional silence until they reached an unoccupied corridor. Bold promises, he observed, voice carefully neutral. The division has heard similar speeches before. Not from me, Issei replied simply. How many of our assigned sectors currently show anomalous readings? Kano blinked at the sudden topic change. 3 active investigations, sir. 2 in Karakura town showing minor disruptions in the spiritual membrane, likely natural fluctuations. The 3rd in Naruki city demonstrates more concerning patterns, periodic surges of unclassified energy signatures followed by localized spiritual dead zones. Dead zones, meaning what exactly? Areas where reishi density drops to near zero and soul movement becomes impossible, Kano elaborated. As if something is consuming the ambient spiritual energy. 12th Division theorizes natural phenomenon, but you disagree, Issei noted. Kano hesitated, then nodded curtly. The pattern suggests deliberate action rather than natural occurrence. I submitted 3 requests for additional investigation resources. All were denied. By whom? Captain Kuretsuchi. He classified the anomaly as low priority, naturally occurring. Issei absorbed this information thoughtfully. The aim Captain Kuretsuchi, who wanted to disassemble me for research purposes. The very same, Kano confirmed, a hint of grim amusement cracking his professional veneer. Interesting. Issei made a ment. I'll note to investigate this connection further. I'd like to review the Naruki City anomaly data personally. When is our next scheduled patrol of that sector? Tomorrow evening, sir. 10th Seat Tanaka leads the surveillance team. Cancel it. I'll handle this investigation personally. Kano frowned. Sir, protocol dictates that an anomaly investigation team requires minimum 3 officers, appropriate surveillance equipment, and command authorization. Issei completed. I'm aware of the protocol, Lieutenant. I've spent every waking moment of the past month studying Soul Society regulations while training 16 hours daily. For the first time, genuine surprise registered on Kano's features. You memorized the operational protocols. Most of them, Issei admitted. My retention seems enhanced by whatever changes are happening to my spiritual structure. The dragon aspect, perhaps. The rumors about your condition are true, then? Kano asked cautiously. Depends which rumors you've heard. Issei replied with a thin smile. But yes, I contain both Shinigami and dragon essence. It creates certain advantages: accelerated learning, enhanced physical capabilities, unique Zanpakuto manifestation. It also presents certain complications. Like being appointed acting captain after 1 month in Soul Society, Kano observed dryly. Exactly like that, Issei agreed, surprising the lieutenant with his candor. I didn't ask for command, Kano. I was given 2 options: accept the appointment or return to Kuretsuchi's tender mercies for research purposes. The lieutenant processed this information silently, reassessing his assumptions. After a long moment, he spoke with careful neutrality. The investigation team will be assembled for tomorrow evening, sir. Will Captain Shihoin be accompanying you? No. My training period with the 2nd Division has concluded. This will be a Division 13 operation exclusively. Issei paused, weighing his next words carefully. I'd like you to lead the team, Lieutenant. Your experience with these anomalies will be valuable. Kano's expression remained professionally impassive, but a subtle shift in his posture suggested Issei's strategy had achieved its intended effect. By demonstrating respect for the lieutenant's expertise rather than asserting hierarchical authority, he'd offered the proud officer a path to collaboration that preserved dignity. I'll assemble appropriate personnel and equipment, Kano responded, his tone marginally less frigid than before. Will you require 12th Division technical support? No, Issei said firmly. This remains our investigation until I determine otherwise. Speaking of which, I'll need complete access to all division records, including any unofficial observations you've compiled on these anomalies. Kano stiffened slightly. Sir, Lieutenant, Issei said quietly, I'm not naive. An experienced officer like yourself, confronted with unexplained phenomena and bureaucratic obstruction, would naturally maintain unofficial documentation. I'm not interested in protocol violations. I'm interested in understanding what's actually happening in Naruki City. After a calculated pause, Kano inclined his head fractionally. I'll have relevant materials delivered to your quarters this evening, sir. Thank you, Lieutenant. Issei gestured toward the administrative building. Now, let's meet the rest of the seated officers. I believe we still have the 6th and 10th seats to introduce. As they proceeded with the division tour, Issei mentally reviewed the day's revelations. Division 13's problems extended beyond simple understaffing into systemic deficiencies, inadequate training, leadership vacuum, and apparent deliberate marginalization by other divisions, particularly the research-focused 12th. More concerning was Kuretsuchi's dismissal of anomalies that clearly warranted investigation. Whether motivated by scientific territorialism or something more sinister remained to be determined. But Issei's instincts, increasingly influenced by draconic intuition, suggested the captain's involvement wasn't coincidental. Tomorrow's expedition to Naruki City would provide answers, and likely, new questions. For now, Issei would focus on establishing basic command structure within his division while reviewing Kano's unofficial records. The dragon essence thrummed beneath his skin, responding to the nascent anticipation building within him. Something significant awaited in Naruki City. Something that might explain why a human with dormant draconic power had suddenly awakened in Soul Society's hour of need. Naruki City sprawled beneath the setting sun, its industrial skyline a jagged silhouette against blood-orange clouds. Issei stood atop an abandoned manufacturing facility, Shinigami robes rippling in the evening breeze as he surveyed the sprawling urban landscape. Around him, Division 13's investigation team arranged specialized equipment with practiced efficiency. Spiritual density readings show 30% below normal parameters, reported 10th Seat Tanaka, a petite woman whose delicate appearance belied her technical expertise. Cons. Istent with previous surveys but declining at accelerated rates. Lieutenant Kano frowned, studying the monitoring equipment with concern. Radius of effect has expanded since last observation. Preview. As dead zone measured 800 meters, current readings indicate approximately 1200 meters and growing. Issei knelt, placing his palm against the weathered concrete. Beneath the physical structure, he sensed the spiritual lattice that underpinned all material objects, the Reishi framework that connected the living world to Soul Society. Within the anomalous zone, that framework showed distinct deterioration, as if something were systematically unraveling the spiritual threads. This isn't natural degradation, he stated, certainty hardening his voice. The pattern is too organized, too deliberate. Sir, Kano questioned, moving to his side. Look here, Issei indicated the monitoring equipment's display. Natural spiritual erosion would show random dispersal patterns. These readings form concentric circles with precisely equal diminishment ratios between bands. That suggests intelligent design, a constructed effect rather than entropic breakdown. Tanaka leaned forward, adjusting her instrument settings. He's right, Lieutenant. The degradation follows mathematical progression too precise for natural occurrence. Someone's creating these dead zones intentionally, Issei concluded, rising to his feet. The question is why, and how. Hollow activity, suggested the third team member, 8th Seat Yamato, a broad-shouldered man whose Zanpakuto specialization involved sensing spiritual disruptions. Unlikely, Kano countered. Hollows consume souls, not ambient spiritual energy. This phenomenon affects the fundamental spiritual composition of physical space. Issei unclipped Enryu from his sash, the Zanpakuto humming with subtle resonance as it reacted to the anomalous energies. We need to locate the epicenter. Tanaka, triangulate the degradation pattern and identify the focal point. As Tanaka calculated coordinates, Issei extended his senses outward, drawing on draconic perception that operated differently from Shinigami's spiritual awareness. Where's she? Nigami Ryutsu detection functioned like sonar, waves of energy returning information about surrounding spiritual presences. His dragon-influenced perception added dimensions of taste and scent to spiritual signatures. The anomaly carried a distinct flavor, metallic, artificial, with undertones of something disturbingly familiar. He'd encountered similar spiritual residue once before, in Captain Kuro Tsuchi's laboratory during his initial evaluation. Epicenter located, Tanaka announced. Approximately 600 meters northwest, centered on what appears to be a medical research facility. Kano, Yamato, with me, Issei ordered. Tanaka, maintain position and monitor for changes in the degradation pattern. If the dead zone expands suddenly or readings spike, contact us immediately. Using Lash Step, the high-speed movement technique he'd mastered with unexpected ease during Captain Shihoin's training, Issei led his team toward the coordinates. They arrived at an unassuming 6-story building, bearing the innocuous name, Naruki Advanced Medical Research. Spiritual readings indicate this is definitely our focal point, Yamato confirmed, his Zanpakuto glowing faintly as it reacted to the surrounding energies. Degradation intensifies geometrically as we approach the structure. Issei studied the building, noting the absence of external security cameras, the reflective windows designed to prevent observation, and the single unmarked entrance, all suggesting operations intended to avoid scrutiny. Official records, he inquired. Registered as Private Medical Research Corporation, specializing in advanced imaging technologies, Kano replied, consulting a small data device. Licensed 5 years ago, minimal public footprint, funded through several holding companies. He frowned. Tracing ownership leads to dead ends and shell corporations. Convenient, Issei remarked dryly. Entrance strategy. Kano raised an eyebrow. Standard protocol for human world investigation limits interference to observation only, sir. Direct engagement requires captain-level authorization, which I technically possess as acting division leader, Issei completed. This facility is deliberate, destabilizing the spiritual membrane between worlds. That constitutes direct threat to Soul Society security, justifying intervention under Regulation 415b. The lieutenant's expression suggested he was reassessing his new commander's knowledge of operational protocols. As you say, sir. Recommended approach. We enter in spirit form, conduct internal reconnaissance, locate the source of the anomaly, and determine appropriate action based on findings. Issei turned to Yamato. Can your Zanpakuto identify active spiritual technology within the building? The eighth seat nodded confidently. Arashika specializes in detecting energy manipulation. If there's spiritual technology operating inside, I'll find it. Good. Kano, you're with me on the upper levels. Yamato, sweep the lower floors and basement. Maintain spirit form to avoid human detection unless absolutely necessary. Issei gripped Enryu, the Zanpakuto's energy synchronizing with his own. Move. They infiltrated the facility with practiced efficiency, passing through solid matter in their spiritual forms. The building's interior presented a study in contrasts. Upper floors arranged as conventional medical research lab. Oratories with white-coated technicians attending various imaging equipment, while lower levels revealed increasingly restricted access and security measures disproportionate to the supposed research conducted. On the fourth floor, Issei and Kano discovered the first concrete evidence of spiritual manipulation, a laboratory where specialized equipment monitored what appeared to be concentrated reishi contained within sealed chambers. They're studying spirit particles, Kano whispered, observing a technician adjusting controls that altered the reishi configuration. But how? Ordinary humans shouldn't be able to perceive spiritual matter, let alone manipulate it. These aren't ordinary humans, Issei replied, noting the subtle glow emanating from devices implanted behind the technician's ears. They've been modified somehow, given artificial spiritual awareness. A communication device at Kano's wrist pulsed silently. Yamato's found something in the basement level, he reported after checking the message. Significant spiritual technology and what he describes as contained subjects. Let's go, Issei ordered, moving toward the stairwell. The basement level confirmed Issei's growing suspicions. Beyond multiple security checkpoints lay a circular chamber ringed with specialized equipment. At its center stood a transparent containment unit housing a single occupant, a young woman with short black hair and haunted eyes. Her body connected to numerous monitoring devices. Most disturbingly, her spiritual signature flickered erratically between solid and translucent states, as if she existed simultaneously in physical and spiritual dimensions. What have they done to her? Kano murmured, horror evident in his normally controlled voice. Before Issei could respond, alarm klaxons shattered the facility's quiet. Red emergency lights bathed the chamber as security doors slammed shut, sealing the area. Spiritual intrusion detected, announced a computerized voice. Security protocols activated. Containment field engaged. They can detect us in spirit form, Issei realized, materializing into physical visibility as a shimmering energy barrier enveloped the chamber. Yamato, status. The eighth seat appeared from an adjacent corridor, Zanpakuto drawn. Security personnel approaching from eastern access point, sir. They're carrying weapons that register as spiritually reactive. Impossible, Kano stated. Humans shouldn't possess. Yet they clearly do, Issei interrupted, drawing Enryu. Yamato, secure our exit route. Kano, free the subject. I'll handle security. As if on cue, the eastern door burst open, admitting 6 armed guards wearing specialized visors and carrying weapons that hummed with concentrated spiritual energy. Upon spotting the intruding Shinigami, they raised their weapons without hesitation. Targets acquired, barked the lead guard into a communication device. Implementing containment protocol, the weapons discharged streams of reishi that coalesced into binding energy, a crude approximation of Shinigami Kido restraints. Issei moved with flash step velocity, Enryu cleaving through the energy streams before they could form bonds. These aren't ordinary humans, he called to his team as he engaged the guards. They're using technology derived from Shinigami techniques. Kano, meanwhile, had reached the containment unit and D was attempting to disable its control systems. The subject appears to be the focal point of the spiritual drain effect, he reported. Her condition is being used to create the dead zones. Within her transparent prison, the young woman's eyes suddenly focused on Issei. Her lips moved soundlessly, forming words he couldn't hear through the barrier. Something about her desperate expression triggered protective instincts that transcended rational strategy. Get her out, Issei commanded, deflecting another energy blast with Enryu's blade. Priority 1 is securing the subject. More guards poured into the chamber as facility-wide alarms continued blaring. Issei found himself surrounded, the modified humans demonstrating combat capabilities far beyond normal parameters, enhanced speed, coordinated tactics, and weapons specifically designed to counteract Shinigami abilities. Dragon essence stirred within him, responding to escalating danger. Red energy rippled beneath his skin as Enryu's blade began to glow with crimson light. Burn, Issei whispered, connecting with his Zanpakuto's power. Enryu. Crimson flame erupted along the blade's length, spiritual pressure spiking dramatically. Why as Issei released his Shikai for the first time in actual combat. The transformation sent guards staggering backwards, their visors unable to fully filter the intense spiritual radiation. Impossible spiritual pressure detected, announced the automated system. Emergency protocols activated, initiating facility purge. Across the chamber, Kano had finally breached the containment unit's controls. The transparent walls retracted, allowing him to reach the captive woman. As monitoring equipment disconnected from her body, the facility's lights flickered ominously. Spiritual membrane destabilizing, warned the computerized voice. Critical failure imminent. We need to leave, now. Kano shouted, lifting the weakened woman into his arms. The entire dead zone is collapsing. Issei nodded, channeling energy through Enryu to create a path through the remaining guards. Yamato, status on our exit. Clear to the second floor, sir, came the response through their communication devices. Quote, but the spiritual disruption is intensifying throughout the building. Physical structure showing signs of degradation. Maintain position and prepare for extraction, Issei ordered, moving to Kano's side. Is she stable for transport? The lieutenant nodded grimly. Physically, yes. Spiritually, unclear. Her energy signature is unlike anything I've encountered, fluctuating between human and something else entirely. As if confirming his assessment, the woman's form shimmered, momentarily becoming translucent before solidifying again. Her eyes opened, revealing irises that shifted between natural brown and luminous silver. They're coming, she whispered, voice hoarse from disuse. You have to run. Who's coming? Issei demanded, supporting her other side as they moved toward the exit. The ones who made me, she answered. Gaze unfocused. The boundary breakers. They'll recalibrate soon. The facility shuddered around them, concrete cracking as the spiritual foundation beneath the physical structure deteriorated rapidly. They reached the second floor to find Yamato engaged with another security team, these wearing more advanced equipment and demonstrating greater spiritual awareness than the basement guards. Sir, Yamato called, his Zanpakuto generating wind-based attacks that kept the security team at bay. The entire building is becoming unstable. Spiritual readings indicate total structural collapse within minutes. Issei assessed their options rapidly. Conventional exit routes were blocked by security forces, and the building itself was literally dissolving at the spiritual level. They needed an alternative extraction method, immediately. Enryu pulsed in his grip, communicating without words. The dragon essence within him responded, unfurling with predatory eagerness. Everyone close to me, Issei commanded, raising his Zanpakuto. Maintain physical contact. As his team complied, gathering around him with the rescued woman supported between Kano and Yamato, Issei channeled power through Enryu unlike anything he'd attempted before. Dragon-influenced Ryutsu spiraled outward, creating a cocoon of crimson energy around the group. Enryu, he intoned, the Zanpi. Akuto's spirit resonating with his intent, celestial claw path. Reality tore open before them, not the clean, precise garganta of hollow passage or the structured senkaimon of Shinigami transit, but something wilder, more primal. A pathway between dimensions that bypassed conventional spiritual channels, forged through draconic power rather than Shinigami technique. Go, Issei ordered, maintaining. ing the unstable portal through sheer force of will as the building continued disintegrating around them. His team plunged into the crimson-tinged opening, Issei following last as security forces closed in. The passage between dimensions lasted mere seconds but felt like eternity, a disorienting journey through spaces not meant for mortal traversal. They emerged atop the manufacturing facility where Tanaka maintained their monitoring position, the technician's eyes widening in shock at their dramatic arrival. "Captain," she exclaimed, rushing forward as the portal collapsed behind them. What happened? All readings went critical simultaneously. The facility was experimenting with dimensional manipulation, Kano answered grimly, lowering their rescued subject carefully to a sitting position. Using her as some kind of focal point. The woman shivered despite the warm evening air, her gaze now more focused as she examined her surroundings. "They'll track us," she stated with quiet certainty. "The implant transmits location data." "Implant?" Issei questioned. She touched the base of her skull where a small surgical scar was barely visible beneath her short hair. "Quantum entanglement transmitter. Allows monitoring across dimensional boundaries." Tanaka approached cautiously, scanning equipment humming as she analyzed the woman's fluctuating spiritual signature. "Sir, her readings are unprecedented. She's registering simultaneously as human and spirit entity, shifting between states approximately every 7.3 seconds. Can you remove the implant?" Issei asked. The woman shook her head. "Not without specialized equipment. It's integrated with my nervous system. We need to return to Soul Society immediately," Kano advised. "This location is compromised, and we have a civilian requiring medical attention." "She's not exactly civilian," Yamato observed, keeping respectful distance while maintaining vigilance over the surrounding area. "What exactly are you, Miss?" "Kaori," she supplied after brief hesitation. "Kaori Sakamoto, and I don't know what I am anymore." Her form shimmered again, momentarily transparent before resolidifying. "They called me Project Boundary Walker. Their first successful phase shifter." "Phase shifter," Issei repeated, the term triggering recognition from Kano's unofficial reports. "You can transition between physical and spiritual states consciously." "Not consciously," she corrected, frustration evident in her voice. That was the problem. They couldn't stabilize the transition or bring it under voluntary control. So they used Issei RNAL stabilizers to force cyclical patterns, then harvested the dimensional energy created during transitions. "Creating the dead zones," Kano concluded. "Spiritual energy consumed to power the forced transitions." Issei knelt beside Kaori, studying her with both Shinigami senses and draconic perception. Her spiritual signature was indeed unlike anything he'd encountered, neither fully human nor Holy Spirit. But something liminally balanced between states. More concerning, her spiritual core showed signs of extensive manipulation, artificial constructs interwoven with her natural soul structure. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. Kaori's expression darkened. "They called themselves Advanced Research Consortium for Humanity. Scientists obsessed with breaking dimensional boundaries. Accessing spiritual realms through technological means." Her hands trembled slightly as she continued. "I volunteered, for their experimental program 3 years ago. I haven't seen daylight since." "Volunteered?" Yamato questioned skeptically. "My father was lead researcher," she clarified, bitterness coloring her voice. "When they needed human subjects for phase transition experiments, he offered his own daughter as proof of his commitment to scientific progress." The casual cruelty of her situation struck Issei deeply, resonating with his own experience of being valued for research potential rather than personhood. He made a decision. "We're taking you to Soul Society," he stated. "4th Division has the medical expertise to evaluate your condition and possibly neutralize the tracking implant." "Sir," Kano interjected carefully, "bringing a living human to Soul Society violates numerous regulations." "She's not entirely human anymore, Lieutenant," Issei countered. "Her condition falls squarely within Division 13's jurisdiction as a spiritual anomaly requiring investigation. More importantly, leaving her in the living world puts her at risk of recapture by Arch or worse." The lieutenant appeared ready to protest further but relented after observing Kaori's unstable manifestation cycle. "Understood, sir. Shall I prepare the Senkaimon?" "No," Issei decided, recalling how the facility's security systems had detected their spiritual presence. If her implant transmits across dimensions, a conventional Senkaimon might be traceable. We'll use the method that brought us here. Sir, Kano questioned, concern evident. That technique is untested for long-range dimensional transit. The spiritual strain on you is acceptable given the circumstances, Issei completed firmly. Tanaka, collect all monitoring data and prepare for immediate departure. Yamato, secure the perimeter until we're ready to transit. As his team complied with practiced efficiency, Issei turned back to Kaori, who was observing him with growing curiosity. You're not like the others, she stated simply. Not fully Shinigami. Something else mingles with your spiritual signature. Issei raised an eyebrow. You can perceive spiritual compositions. Side effect of the experiments, she explained. My perception shifts with my physical state. When I'm more spirit than matter, I see energy patterns instead of physical forms. Her gaze intensified. Yours has two distinct patterns intertwined, structured geometric shapes overlaid with flowing, organic waveforms. Dragon essence, he confirmed, impressed by her perceptual accuracy. I'm a hybrid, like you, though through different circumstances. That's why you can open paths between worlds, she surmised. Dragons exist artially outside conventional dimensional boundaries. Before Issei could question how she possessed such specific knowledge about draconic nature, Tanaka interrupted with urgent news. Sir, multiple spiritual anomalies detected approaching our position. Classification unknown, but energy signatures suggest artificial construction rather than natural entities. Arch security drones, Kaori identified grimly. Phase-capable pursuit units designed to recapture escapees. Issei made an instant decision. Change of plans. Kano, you'll lead the team back through conventional Senkaimon. All transpi. Ordered Kaori directly to 4th Division using Enryu's dimensional ability. Splitting the team increases risk, Kano argued. Concentrating targets increases risk more, Issei countered. The drones are tracking her specifically. If we separate, you can return safely while I draw pursuit away from the team. The lieutenant clearly disliked the plan but recognized the tactical logic. Very well, sir. We'll report directly to Captain Commander upon arrival. Good. Tell Captain Unohana to expect us in the 4th Division emergency reception area. Issei moved to Kaori's side, helping her stand. This transit will feel disorienting. Stay close to me throughout. As Kano prepared the conventional Senkaimon for the team's departure, Issei once again channeled power through Enryu, focusing on the specific spiritual coordinates of 4th Division's medical complex. Dragon essence surged through his system, providing the raw power necessary to tear a passage through dimensional boundaries. Ready? He asked Kaori, who stood unsteadily beside him. She nodded, determination overcoming fear. Ready. Enryu, Issei commanded, crimson energy spiraling around them, celestial claw path. Reality split open once more, revealing a swirling tunnel of red-tinged darkness. As they stepped through, the first of the security drones appeared on the horizon, sleek, metallic constructs moving with unnatural speed toward their position. The dimensional passage closed behind them just as the drones reached their previous location, cutting off pursuit temporarily. But Issei harbored no illusions about the respite's permanence. If Kaori's assessment was accurate, Arch possessed technology specifically designed to track dimensional transitions. The battle had only just begun. 4th Division's Emerg NC Medical Center erupted into controlled chaos as Issei and Kaori materialized in the reception area. Prepared by Kano's advanced communication, a medical team led by Lieutenant Issei Katetsu awaited their arrival. Moving with practiced efficiency to transfer Kaori onto a specialized examination platform. Captain Unohana is preparing the secure treatment chamber, Lieutenant Katetsu informed Issei as her team conducted preliminary assessments of Kaori's fluctuating condition. These readings are extraordinary. I've never seen a spirit-human hybrid manifesting cyclical phase transitions. Can you stabilize her? Issei asked, watching with concern as Kaori's form shifted once again, momentarily becoming transparent before resolidifying. Uncertain, Katetsu admitted candidly. The tech, HNology integrated with her spiritual core is unlike anything in our records. Captain Unohana requested 12th Division technical consultation, but no, Issei interrupted firmly. 12th Division is not to be involved under any circumstances. Kotetsu blinked in surprise. Sir, without specialized technical expertise. Find another solution, he insisted. There are other sources of technical knowledge in Soul Society. Contact the Kido Corps if necessary, but Kuritsuchi's division remains excluded from this case. Though clearly confused by his vehemence, the lieutenant nodded. As you wish, Acting Captain Hyodo. We'll proceed with isolation and stabilization protocols using our own resources. As the medical team wheeled Kaori toward the treatment chambers, her hand suddenly shot out, gripping Issei's wrist with surprising strength. Don't leave, she pleaded, eyes wide with barely controlled panic. They always separated subjects before the worst procedures. The naked fear eye, and her expression stirred protective instincts Issei hadn't realized he possessed. I'll stay, he promised, matching her grip with gentle reassurance. These people are here to help you, Kaori. No one will harm you in Soul Society. Her grip relaxed marginally, though anxiety still tightened her features. They said that at Arch 2, at first. Advancing human potential. Bridging worlds for scientific progress. Pretty words hiding ugly intentions. I understand trust is difficult, Issei acknowledged, walking alongside the gurney. But I give you my word as a captain of the Gote 13, you are under my division's protection now. No experiments without consent, no procedures without explanation. Something in his tone or expression must have convinced her, as Kaori released his wrist and settled back against the examination platform with tentative acceptance. The secure treatment chamber proved to be a specialized room with walls inscribed with complex Kido formulas designed to stabilize fluctuating spiritual entities. Captain Unohana awaited them, her serene expression betraying no surprise at Kaori's unusual condition. Acting Captain Hyodo, she greeted with formal courtesy that couldn't quite mask her curiosity. Your lieutenant provided preliminary information, but I see the situation as more complex than initially reported. This is Kaori Sakamoto, Issei introduced as. Technicians transferred the patient to a central examination table. She was held captive by an organization called Arch, subjected to experiments designed to create a being capable of transitioning between physical and spiritual states. Fascinating, Unohana murmured, beginning her own examination with gentle efficiency. And concerning. The spiritual modifications are extensive, penetrating to the core structure of her soul. This work shows knowledge of spiritual engineering that should be beyond human capability. They had help, Kaori stated flatly. Not all researchers were human. Some came through ports they called, negotiated access points, doors between worlds. Unohana and Issei exchanged significant glances at this revelation. Can you describe these non-human researchers? Unohana asked carefully. Rarely saw them directly, Kaori replied, wincing as the captain's examination touched a particularly sensitive spiritual pathway. They kept to restricted areas. But once, during a phase transition, I perceived one clearly. Humanoid but wrong somehow, proportions slightly off, movements too precise. It spoke to my father about maintaining the agreement and scheduled technological transfers. Soul Society has treaties with various spiritual realms, Unohana noted, continuing her examination. But none that would sanction technological exchange with humans, particularly for purposes of dimensional manipulation. Which suggests unauthorized contact, Issei concluded grimly. Possibly rogue elements from one of the adjacent realms. A concerning possibility that the Captain Commander will want investigated thoroughly, Unohana agreed. She gestured to a specialized scanning device being positioned above Kaori. This will create a comprehensive map of the modifications to your spiritual structure. Kaori-san, it's non-invasive but may cause mild discomfort during your transition phases. As the scanning process began, Issei's communication device pulsed with an incoming message. Lieutenant Kano's voice emerged, tense with urgency. Sir, we've returned safely to Soul Society, but there's a complication. A representative from the Kido Corps Scientific Div. Ishin is requesting immediate audience regarding our Naruki City operation. Identity, Issei questioned, moving slightly away from the examination table. Elaine Westcott, Research Director. Shi Claw. IM's prior knowledge of Arch activities and critical information regarding their dimensional manipulation technology. The name triggered no recognition, but the timing seemed suspiciously convenient. How did she learn of our operation so quickly? Unknown, sir. She arrived at Division 13 headquarters moments after our return, specifically requesting to speak with, quote, the Dragon Touché. D. Captain who extracted subject boundary walker. Alarm rippled through Issei at the specific terminology. Secure her in the division's interrogation room. I'll return immediately. Sir. Kano acknowledged. One additional note. She's human. Human. Issei repeated incredulously. In Soul Society. Apparently authorized as a special consultant to the Kido Corps 3 years ago. She has documentation signed by Central 46. The situation grew more complex by the moment. Maintain surveillance. I'm on my way. Ending the communication, Issei turned back to Captain Unohana, who had clearly overheard the exchange. A human consultant to the Kido Corps? She questioned, eyebrow raised. Most unusual. Everything about this situation is unusual, Issei replied. Captain, I need to return to my division to interview this Westcott person, but I'm reluctant to leave Kaori unprotected. Your concern is noted but unnecessary, Unohana assured him. 4th Division security protocols are second only to the maggot's nest. No unauthorized personnel will access this treatment chamber. Kaori's expression tightened with renewed anxiety. They have ways of tracking me across dimensions. The implant will be neutralized, Unohana promised. The scanning process has already isolated its spiritual signature. Once mapping is complete, we can establish containment fields specific to its transmission frequency. Though not entirely reassured, Kaori nodded reluctantly. You'll return? She asked Issei, vulnerability momentarily overriding her reserve. As soon as possible, he confirmed, Su. RP rising himself with how strongly he meant it. Something about Kaori's situation resonated deeply with him. Perhaps recognition of a fellow outsider thrust into Soul Society's complex politics, or sim. Ply empathy for someone whose body had been modified without consent for others' purposes. We'll complete the initial stabilization protocols within 3 hours, Unohana informed him. By then, we hold have preliminary recommendations for long-term treatment options. With a final reassuring nod to Kaori, Issei departed, mind already turning to the mysterious Elaine Westcott and her convenient appearance immediately following their Naruki City operation. The timing suggested either exceptional intelligence networks or direct connection to Arch itself, neither possibility particularly comforting. Utilizing Flash Step to cross Seraite rapidly, Issei arrived at Division 13 headquarters to find Lieutenant Kano awaiting him outside the interrogation facility, a small, rarely used Bawheel ding designed with specialized Kido barriers to prevent spiritual communication or escape. Status? Issei inquired briskly. The consultant remains secured in interview room 3, Kano reported. No attempts at communication or escape detected. She appears remarkably comfortable for someone in her situation. Physical description: Caucasian female, approximately 30 years of age, red blonde hair, business attire. Carries herself with academic confidence. No visible weapons, though she wears several items of jewelry with minor spiritual properties, likely protective talismans. Issei nodded thoughtfully. Surveillance. 5th Seat Matsuda observes from the adjacent monitoring room. All standard security protocols active. Good. I'll speak with her alone initially. Maintain observation and ready a full security team if necessary. The interrogation room presented the expected austere functionality. Bare walls inscribed with subtle restraint Kido, a simple table with 2 chairs. And lighting designed to focus attention on the occupant rather than the interviewer. Seated with perfect composure, the woman matched Kano's description precisely: professional attire, intelligent eyes, currently studying a complex spiritual formula she'd apparently traced on the tabletop with her fingertip. She looked up as Issei entered, expression registering neither surprise nor concern. Acting Captain Hyodo, I presume. Fascinating temporal aura you possess, draconic undertones modulating standard Shinigami frequencies. Quite the elegant integration. Her casual assessment of his spiritual composition, delivered in accented Japanese with the matter-of-fact tone of a scientist recording observations, momentarily disoriented him. This was not the reaction of someone intimidated by captivity in Soul Society. Elaine Westcott, Issei stated, taking the seat opposite her. Research Director with the Kido Corps Scientific Division. Human. In Soul Society. With specific knowledge of a Classified Division 13 operation conducted less than 2 hours ago. Her lips curved in a slight smile. All correct, though you've omitted several relevant qualifiers. I'm also Doctor of Theor. Ethical Dimensional Physics from Cambridge University, Certified Master Practitioner in 3 Western magical traditions, and for the past 5 years, lead investigator into Arch's unauthorized dimensional manipulation activities. You know Arch, Issei observed, studying her reactions carefully. Intimately, she confirmed without hesitation. I've tracked their operations across 17 countries. Documented 43 cases of illegal spiritual experimentation, and assisted Soul Society in neutralizing 6 of their research facilities. Her expression hardened slightly, though the Issei City facility had thus far eluded direct intervention due to political complications. What complications? Central 46 forbade direct Shinigami action against the facility after discovering Kaori Sakamoto's unique condition. She explained. They feared disrupting her stabilization process might trigger catastrophic dimensional collapse. My team was developing a specialized extraction plan when you accelerated the timeline dramatically. Your team, Joint Keto Corps and human operatives specializing in spiritual technology countermeasures, she clarified. We maintain surveillance on all known Arch installations under Protocol 77B, the Interdimensional Non-Interference Treaty. Issei leaned forward slightly. You seem remarkably well informed for a human. Spiritual awareness runs in my family. Westcott replied with a casual shrug that belied the significance of her statement. My grandmother could see spirits. My mother could communicate with them. I can manipulate spiritu energy through modified keto frameworks adapted for human implementation. She demonstrated by tracing another formula on the tabletop, this one glowing briefly with pale blue energy before dissipating. Nothing approaching Shinigami capabilities, of course, but sufficient for specialized research purposes. Which still doesn't explain how you knew about our Issei City operation, Issei pointed out. Our Kaori's extraction. Arch's security systems are designed to alert their entire network when containment protocols activate, Westcott explained. My team monitors those alerts. When the Boundary Walker project registered as extraction in progress, we traced the spiritual signatures involved. Her eyes met his directly. Yours is rather distinctive, Captain. Dragon Shinigami hybrid. Signatures tend to stand out against background spiritual noise. The casual reference to his unique condition as if it were common knowledge unsettled Issei deeply. How do you know about my condition? Soul Society records. She replied simply. I have clearance to access non-restricted information regarding spiritual anomalies, which your case file falls under. Quite fascinating reading, though obviously heavily redacted. Issei maintained outward composure while internally reassessing everything about this encounter. Either Westcott possessed security clearance far beyond what any human should have. Our Soul Society's information security had been compromised at fundamental levels. Why are you here, Drive? Westcott. He asked directly. 3 reasons, she answered, professional demeanor intensifying. First, to warn you that Kaori Sakamoto's condition is significantly more dangerous than 4th Division currently realizes. The implant at her brain stem isn't merely a tracking device. It's a dimensional anchor point designed to maintain stability during phase transitions. Issei tensed. Meaning if removed incorrectly, it could trigger catastrophic destabilization of our dimensional state, potentially creating a localized collapse affecting everything within several kilometers. That's concerning information you might have shared immediately upon arrival, Issei noted with narrowed eyes. I attempted to, but your lieutenant insisted on security protocols, she countered smoothly. Hence my specific request to speak with you directly. She continued without pause. Second reason. Arch maintains connections with entities from the boundary realm, beings that exist in the dimensional interstices between established spiritual planes. The non-human researchers Kaori mentioned, Issei recalled. Exactly. They call themselves Veilers, interdimensional entities obsessed with collapsing the barriers between realms. They've been providing Arch with technology for decades, using humans as proxies for their own agenda, which is unification, Westcott replied grimly. They believe all spiritual and physical realms should exist in a single merged dimension. IR experiments with phase-shifting technology represent early attempts to achieve localized merging. The implications sent a chill through Issei. And the third reason for your visit? To offer assistance, she stated simply. I've developed countermeasures for Arch's dimensional technology. More importantly, I've studied Kaori's condition extensively through surveillance data. I can help stabilize her transitions and neutralize the tracking implant safely. Why would you help us? Issei questioned, skepticism evident. Westcott's professional facade cracked slightly, revealing genuine emotion beneath. Because 5 years ago, my younger sister was taken by Arch for similar experiments. They called her Project Threshold Walker. She met Issei's gaze unflinchingly. She didn't survive the procedure. The raw pain in her voice carried unmistakable authenticity. Whatever her other motivations, this personal loss rang true. I've dedicated my life to stopping their dimensional manipulation program, she continued. Composure returning. When I discovered genuine spiritual talent, I approached Soul Society through established channels, offering my specialized knowledge in exchange for access and resources. The Keto Core recognized the value of having a human operative who could move freely in the living world while understanding spiritual mechanics. Issei considered the information carefully, weighing risks against potential benefits. If what you say about Kaori's implant is accurate, time is critical. Yet I have no way to verify your claims independently. Contact Captain Hikafuna of the Keto Core. Westcott suggested. She authorized my consultant status and can confirm my identity and clearance. A reasonable suggestion, came a new voice from the doorway, though unfortunately. Captain Hikafuna is currently unavailable for consultation. Both turned to see Captain Yukitaki entering the interrogation room, his gentle demeanor contrasting with the gravity of his presence. Captain Yukitaki, Issei acknowledged with respectful surprise. I wasn't aware you'd been informed of this situation. The Captain Commander requested my observation, Yukitaki explained mildly. Dr. Westcott's arrival in Soul Society activated certain security protocols. He turned to Westcott with a polite nod. Doctor, your credentials have been verified through Keto Core records. Captain Hikafuna did indeed authorize your consultant status. Relief visibly washed over Westcott's features. Thank you, Captain. Then perhaps we can proceed to 4th Division. The stabilization procedure for Kaori Sakamoto should begin as soon as possible. Of course, Yukitaki agreed. Acting Captain Hyodo will escort you there immediately. I'll inform Captain Unohana to expect your arrival. As they prepared to depart, Issei caught Yukitaki's subtle gesture requesting private words. Asking Westcott to wait with Lieutenant Kano, he stepped aside with the senior captain. Your thoughts? Yukitaki inquired quietly. Her knowledge is extensive, Issei observed. Almost suspiciously so, but her emotional response regarding her sister seemed genuine. Yukitaki nodded thoughtfully. Central 46 has authorized her temporary involvement, with restrictions. She may assist with Sakamoto's stabilization but remains under Division 13 supervision at all times. Understood. One more thing, Issei-kun, Yukitaki added, using the informal address for the first time. Your division's action today, while technically unauthorized, has exposed a significant security breach in Soul Society's human world monitoring systems. The Captain Commander is impressed with your initiative. Coming from Yamamoto, such acknowledgement represented high praise indeed. Thank you for informing me, Captain. Progress suits you, Yukitaki observed with gentle humor. 1 month ago, you stood before the captains as an anomaly to be contained. Today, you command a division and uncover conspiracies threatening multiple realms. Fate has an interesting sense of humor, Issei agreed wryly. Indeed it does. The senior captain's expression grew more serious. Be careful with Dr. Westcott. Her intentions may be honorable, but humans with spiritual awareness often walk complicated paths. With that cryptic warning, Yukitaki departed, leaving Issei to contemplate the rapidly evolving situation. In less than 24 hours, his leadership of Division 13 had evolved from administrative challenge to interdimensional conspiracy investigation. The dragon essence within him stirred with anticipation. Something significant approached, a convergence of events that would test his evolving capabilities and newfound authority. For the first time since his arrival in Soul Society, Issei felt not merely reactive but purposefully positioned. The anomaly that had once defined him now empowered him to address anomalies threatening multiple worlds. With renewed determination, he rejoined Westcott ND Kano to continue their urgent mission to 4th Division, unaware that watchful eyes from multiple realms now focused intently on his actions. The boundary between worlds was thinning, and Issei Hyodo stood at its weakest point. Chapter 3. Realms in Balance. Midnight shadows danced across 4th Division's recovery ward as Issei studied the monitoring equipment surrounding Kaori's bed. 3.ys had passed since her rescue from Arch's facility, 3 days of delicate procedures to stabilize her fluctuating spiritual state. Dr. Westcott's expertise had proven invaluable, her specialized knowledge of dimensional manipulation technology allowing for the safe neutralization of the tracking implant without triggering the catastrophic collapse she had warned about. Her readings have improved considerably, Westcott observed, entering the room with a data tablet displaying complex spiritual waveforms. The human researcher had earned grudging respect from 4th Division medical staff through her tireless work and genuine concern for Kaori's well-being. Phase transitions have decreased from every 7.3 seconds to approximately once per hour. Still involuntary, but significantly less taxing on her spiritual core. Issei nodded, noting how peaceful Kaori looked in sleep, a stark contrast to the terrified woman they'd rescued. Will she ever stabilize completely? Unlikely, Westcott admitted, adjusting a monitoring sensor with practiced precision. The modifications to her soul structure are too extensive for complete reversal. However, with continued treatment, she should eventually gain conscious control over the transitions rather than experiencing them involuntarily. She tucked a strand of red blonde hair behind her ear, revealing the subtle fatigue etched in her features after days of intensive work. Despite her composed exterior, Westcott had pushed herself to the limits of human endurance throughout Kaori's treatment. You need rest, Issei observed. A wry smile touched her lips. Pot, kettle, Captain. You haven't left the division grounds in 72 hours except for required captain meetings. Different circumstances, he countered. Shinigami Dragon Hybrid. DS apparently require less sleep than humans with spiritual awareness. A convenient adaptation, she acknowledged, setting down the tablet. Though I suspect your vigilance stems more from concern than physiological advantage. Before Issei could respond, a subtle vibration hummed through the room, not physical but spiritual, a tremor in the dimensional fabric that sent monitoring equipment into momentary disarray. Westcott frowned, adjusting settings with quick, precise movements. Third occurrence in 6 hours, she noted. Increasing in frequency and intensity. After effects from the implant removal, Issei suggested, though his instincts whispered otherwise. Westcott shook her head. No, these disturbances originate externally, not from Kaori's condition. Something is pressuring the boundaries between realms. She studied a particular reading with deepening concern. The pattern resembles Arch technology but significantly more advanced. As if they've accelerated their program dramatically. Or received enhanced assistance from their Velar allies, Issei concluded grimly. Another tremor rippled through the dimensional fabric, stronger than the previous one. Kaori stirred in her sleep, her form momentarily flickering between solid and translucent states before settling. Her condition makes her sensitive to boundary fluctuations, Westcott explained, adjusting stabilization fields around the bed. Like a human seismograph for dimensional disturbances. Issei's communication device pulsed, Lieutenant Kano's voice emerging with uncharacteristic urgency. Captain, multiple anomaly alerts across all monitored sectors. 12th Division has called an emergency captain meeting. Your presence is requested immediately. Acknowledged, Issei responded, already moving toward the door. He paused, glancing back at Westcott. Stay with her. If these disturbances intensify, I'll notify you immediately, she promised. Go. This feels like something bigger than just Kaori's condition. The captain's meeting hall hummed with tension as Issei arrived, most of the Gote 13 leadership already assembled. Captain Kuretsuchi manipulated a complex holographic display at the center of the room. His painted face animated with scientific excitement that contrasted sharply with the grave expressions of his colleagues. Unprecedented dimensional instability, Kuretsuchi declared, manipulating the display to show multiple pulsing anomalies across a map of spiritual realms. Boundary membranes between dimensions showing systemic degradation across 17 distinct coordinates. Fascinating theoretical implications. Focus on the threat assessment, Captain Kuretsuchi, Yamamoto directed sternly from his central position. not the scientific curiosities. Kuretsuchi SCO.W led but adjusted his presentation accordingly. Simply put, the dimensional boundaries separating Soul Society from adjacent realms are weakening at an accelerating rate. If current degradation continues, we estimate total boundary collapse within 48 hours. Meaning what, exactly? Captain Zaraki demanded impatiently. Meaning, you muscle-bound simpleton, Kuretsuchi replied with barely concealed disdain. That separate dimensions will begin merging. Soul Society, the human world, Hueco Mundo, and other spiritual realms would bleed together, creating a dimensional catastrophe of unprecedented scale. Casualties? Captain Sui Feng inquired, cutting to practical concerns. Incalculable, Kuretsuchi admitted with inappropriate relish. Spiritual entities exposed to incompatible dimensional frequencies would experience immediate dissolution. Physical matter encountering spiritual concentrations would undergo spontaneous transmutation. In essence, trillions of entities across multiple realms would cease to exist in their current form. A heavy silence fell across the assembly as the implication settled. Cause? Yamamoto demanded. Unknown with absolute certainty, Kuretsuchi responded. Though readings indicate artificial manipulation rather than natural degradation. The pattern suggests deliberate weakening of specific boundary points using technology similar to what Division 13 encountered in the human world. All eyes turned briefly to Issei, who stepped forward. Arch, the human organization we encountered, was collaborating with interdimensional entities called Veilers. According to our intelligence, these beings seek to collapse the boundaries between realms to create a unified dimension. Your information aligns with historical records, Captain Yukitaki confirmed gravely. The archive contains references to boundary-dwelling entities that attempted similar merging during the formative period of Soul Society. The conflict required unprecedented cooperation between Shinigami and, he hesitated briefly, other spiritual races to repel, including dragons, Captain Kiraku added, his normally relaxed demeanor unusually serious. If memory serves, the ancient texts describe dragons as natural boundary keepers, entities whose spiritual composition reinforces dimensional stability rather than degrading it. Again, attention shifted to Issei, whose hybrid nature suddenly seemed less coincidental and more providential. That would explain why the dragon realm appears resistant to the current degradation, Kuretsuchi noted, highlighting a section of his display where boundary integrity remained stronger than surrounding areas. The draconic spiritual signature naturally counteracts the destabilization effect. Yamamoto's ancient gaze fixed on Issei. Acting Captain Hyodo, your unique condition may prove relevant to our current crisis. What contact have you established with your draconic aspect? Limited, Issei admitted candidly. My Zanpakuto, Enryu, channels aspects of dragon essence, but I've had no direct communication with the dragon realm itself. Perhaps it's time you did, suggested Captain Kiraku. If dragons possess natural boundary-keeping abilities, they may hold knowledge crucial to countering this threat. I concur, Captain Unohana added quietly. Historical records indicate that during previous boundary crises, dragon representatives served as stabilizing anchors for interdimensional repair operations. Yamamoto considered this information silently before reaching his decision. Acting Captain Udou will attempt to establish contact with the dragon realm through his unique spiritual connection. Captain Kuretsuchi, provide technical support without your usual, experimental enthusiasm. The pointed qualification elicited muted amusement from several captains despite the gravity of the situation. Captain Yukitaki and Captain Kiraku will access the restricted historical archives for priests. Dense regarding boundary repair techniques. All other divisions will implement maximum security protocols and prepare for potential interdimensional incursions. The captain commander struck his staff against the floor with finality. We have faced existential threats before. Soul Society will endure this challenge as it has all others. As the meeting concluded, Issei found himself approached by Captain Yukitaki, whose kind expression barely masked his concern. The archive mentions a ritual that might help establish Dragon Realm contact, he explained quietly. A form of meditation focusing on your dual nature. I can have the relevant texts delivered to your division. Thank you, Issei replied sincerely. Though I wonder why my draconic connection manifested just as this crisis emerges. The timing seems suspiciously convenient. Yukatake suggested with a gentle smile. Are perhaps remarkably fortunate. The universe has its own wisdom, Issei-kun. Sometimes the means to address AC. Reese's arrives before we recognize the crisis itself. The captain's perspective offered a comforting alternative to the paranoia that had begun creeping into Issei's thoughts. Whatever cosmic forces had transformed him into a dragon Shinigami hybrid, the ability now represented hope rather than anomaly. I'll begin preparations immediately, Issei decided. Though I should inform Kaori and Dr. Westcott about these developments. Their knowledge of dimensional technology might provide additional insights. A prudent approach, Yukatake agreed. The ancient texts will arrive at Division 13 within the hour. May the wisdom of your predecessors guide your journey between realms. As Issei departed the meeting hall, he couldn't shake the sensation of standing at a precipice, not merely between worlds but between destinies. Whatever happened in the coming days would define not just his role in soul society but the very nature of reality for countless beings across multiple dimensions. The dragon essence stirred within him. No longer a foreign presence but an integral part of his evolving identity. For the first time since his transformation began, Issei embraced the draconic aspect of his soul without reservation. Recognizing that the boundary between Shinigami and dragon within himself might represent the model for harmony between realms. Balance began within. The external would follow. Division 13's meditation chamber had been prepared according to the ancient texts, specifications, circular patterns inscribed on the floor in specialized ink containing dragon scale powder. Ceremonial braziers burning rare incense designed to thin dimensional barriers, and a central dais where Issei now knelt in formal meditation posture. Lieutenant Kano had overseen the preparations with meticulous attention to detail. While Drive, Westcott contributed modifications based on her understanding of dimensional physics. The inscriptions channel your spiritual energy in specific patterns, Westcott explained. Completing a final adjustment to the outermost circle, creating resonance with dragon realm frequencies while maintaining your Shinigami spiritual anchor. Kaori, still weakened but insistent on contributing, monitored specialized equipment from a chair near the chamber's entrance. Her ability to perceive dimensional fluctuations made her uniquely qualified to observe the ritual's effects. The boundary feels thinner here already, she noted, her form flickering briefly as another tremor passed through the dimensional fabric. I can almost see through to something else. Something ancient. That's encouraging, Issei replied, settling Enryu before him on the dais. The Zanpakuto pulsed with subdued crimson energy, responding to the ceremonial preparations. Any final advice before I begin? Westcott straightened, brushing inscribed powder from her hands. According to the texts, the journey between realms isn't merely spiritual but also conceptual. Dragons perceive reality differently than Shinigami or humans. Don't try to impose your understanding on their realm, allow your perceptions to adapt to their dimensional logic. That sounds deliberately cryptic, Issei observed dryly. Welcome to interdimensional travel, she replied with a wry smile. If it made complete logical sense to our minds, it wouldn't be truly interdimensional. Kano approached with formal solemnity, carrying a small ceremonial cup. The texts specify consumption of this draft before beginning the meditation. It contains essence of boundary flora, plants that naturally grow at the edges between dimensions. The liquid within the cup shimmered with opalescent luminosity, neither wholly physical nor entirely spiritual in composition. Issei accepted it with appropriate gravity, noting its pleasant aroma of mountain springs and distant storms. Division security is at maximum, Kano added, stepping back to his position. Captain Yukatake has positioned 6th Division Mem. Burrs as secondary containment in case of complications. Your confidence is overwhelming, Lieutenant, Issei remarked with gallows humor before consuming the draft in a single swallow. The effic tea was immediate and profound, his senses simultaneously sharpening and expanding, perception stretching beyond conventional boundaries. The chamber's solid walls seemed to become translucent, revealing spiritual currents flowing through and around the physical structure like cosmic tides. Remarkable, he murmured, struggling to maintain focus as his consciousness began expanding beyond normal parameters. I can see the spiritual underpinning of everything. Your Ryutsu is shifting frequency, Kaori observed, her voice sounding strangely distant. Oscillating between Shinigami patterns and something more primal. Following the ritual instructions, Issei placed his hands on Enryu's hilt, using the Zanpakuto as both focus point and spiritual conduit. The sword's essence resonated with his altered state, crimson energy spiraling upward to encircle him in a cocoon of draconic ryutsu. Remember, Westcott's voice reached him through the growing distortion of perception, don't fight the transition. Allow the dragon aspect to guide your journey. Issei closed his eyes, surrendering to the expanding awareness as the meditation deepened. Within his inner landscape, the familiar architecture of his soul, structured according to Shinigami patterns, began shifting, revealing deeper layers previously hidden from conscious access. Beneath the ordered geometry of his Shinigami powers flowed something more organic, more primordial, currents of elemental energy moving in patterns that resembled both flame and liquid simultaneously. His consciousness descended into these currents, allowing the draconic essence to envelop him completely for the first time since his awakening. With the surrender came understanding, not intellectual but instinctual, a knowing that transcended rational thought. Dragons don't travel between dimensions, this knowing whispered. We exist between them. The boundaries are our natural domain. Guided by this insight, Issei's perception shifted again. And trying to move from one realm to another, he allowed his awareness to expand into the boundaries themselves, the liminal spaces where dimensions touched but remained distinct. In the meditation chamber, witnesses observed Issei's physical form becoming increasingly translucent, crimson energy intensifying around him until it obscured his human features entirely. Enryu pulsed in synchronization with this energy, its blade seeming to both exist and not exist simultaneously. Dimensional resonance established, Kaori reported, the monitoring equipment recording unprecedented readings. He's creating a stable interface between realms. Quote, not creating, Westcott corrected, watching in fascination. Remembering, his dragon aspect already knows how to navigate these spaces. He's just allowing that knowledge to surface. Within the boundary space, Issei's consciousness expanded beyond individual identity, touching the vast network of interdimensional pathways that connected all realms. Dragon, memory awakened within him, ancestral knowledge encoded in his spiritual DNA, revealing the cosmic architecture invisible to conventional perception. Choose, whispered the boundary itself, its voice either male nor female but something beyond such distinctions. Where would you journey, boundary walker? The dragon realm, Issei answered, focusing his intent on the draconic resonance embedded in his soul. Reality shifted, folded, reconfigured around him. The boundary thinned to transparency, revealing a realm of elemental majesty that defied conventional description. Mountains that flowed like water while remaining solid. Forests whose trees grew simultaneously upward and downward. Skies containing multiple suns arranged in geometric patterns impossible in normal space. With a sensation like passing through a permeable membrane, Issei's consciousness fully entered the dragon realm, his physical body following the path carved by his awareness. The meditation chamber of Division 13 faded from perception, replaced by the alien grandeur of a world shaped by draconic understanding of reality. He materialized atop a crystalline plateau overlooking a vast valley where massive dragons soared through aurora-streaked skies. His Shinigami attire had transformed during the transition, black shihakusho replaced by armor that seemed forged from living scales, crimson and obsidian entered. In patterns that shifted with his movements. Impressive, observed a melodic voice behind him. Most first-time travelers between realms arrive unconscious or disoriented. You managed to maintain compositional integrity and directional intent. Issei turned to find a woman regarding him with analytical interest. Her appearance blended human and draconic features in aesthetically striking way. Iridescent scales accenting otherwise human skin, eyes with vertical pupils containing swirling galaxies of color, hair that moved like liquid silver despite the absence of wind. You were expecting me, Issei stated, recognizing the prepared welcome in her posture. For centuries, she confirmed with a smile that revealed teeth slightly too sharp for human configuration. Though you arrived sooner than the prophecies suggested, crisis has accelerated the timeline, it seems. You know about the boundary degradation, Issei realized. Of course, she gestured toward the horizon where faint distortions rippled through the otherwise perfect sky. Dragons are natural boundary keepers, attuned to interdimensional stability. We've been monitoring the deliberate weakening of the membrane for some time. She approached with fluid grace that suggested both predatory power and regal bearing. I am Tiamat Vortex, principal keeper of the western boundary, former heir to the draconic sovereignty. Her eyes studied him with ancient intelligence. And you are Issei Hyodo, the prophesied convergence, first successful merger of dragon essence and Shinigami spirit in 12,000 years. The casual revelation of his apparent cosmic significance momentarily stunned Issei into silence. Tiamat observed his reaction with something resembling compassionate amusement. Too much, too quickly. She surmised. Understandable. Dragons perceive time differently. Past, present, and potential futures coexist in our awareness. We sometimes forget that sequential beings require gentler introductions to cosmic realities. Recovering his composure, Issei focused on immediate concerns rather than prophecies. Soul Society faces imminent boundary collapse. I came seeking knowledge to prevent dimensional merger. Direct. Tiamat noted approvingly. A Shinigami trait that serves you well. Come, the Sovereign Council awaits your arrival. They will explain what faces all realms, and why your existence offers unique hope. As she led him along a pathway that seemed to materialize beneath their feet as they walked, Issei studied his guide more carefully. Beneath her composed exterior, tension raw, deated from her spiritual signature, anxiety carefully controlled but unmistakably present. You said, former heir, he observed. Political complications. Tiamat's expression tightened momentarily. Perceptive. Yes, I was. Removed from succession 5 centuries ago when I opposed my brother's research into boundary manipulation. Vritra believed dragons should rule all realms, not merely maintain their separation. When the council rejected his proposals, he sought alternative methods to achieve his ambitions. Your brother is involved in the current crisis, Issei concluded. He is the current crisis, she corrected grimly. Vritra discovered ancient techniques to merge draconic power with hollow essence, transforming himself into something unprecedented, a dragon hollow hybrid with the ability to devour boundary structures directly. Her voice held carefully controlled pain as she continued. We call him the Hollow Dragon King now, a being who exists to consume the very boundaries between worlds. The revelation sent a chill through Issei despite the realm's pleasant temperature. A dragon hollow hybrid represented the dark reflection of his own merged nature, convergence twisted toward destruction rather than harmony. And I'm supposed to stop him? He asked, the weight of implied destiny settling uncomfortably on his shoulders. Not alone, Tiamat assured him as they approached. Head a massive structure that seemed grown rather than built, crystal spires rising organically from the living mountain beneath. But your unique nature creates possibilities previously unavailable. Here Vritra corrupted the boundary from one side, you embody harmonious integration from both. The Sovereign Council chamber defied conventional architectural understanding, its interior dimensions seemingly greater than the external structure could possibly contain. 7 massive dragons occupied elevated platforms arranged in a perfect circle, their scales representing every color imaginable in several Issei suspected hadn't existed until the dragons manifested them. At the circle's center stood a raised dais equipped with a crystalline pedestal. Convergence approaches, announced the largest dragon. Scales shifting between midnight blue and cosmic black as it spoke. Destiny arrives ahead of schedule. Circumstances demanded acceleration. Ancient One, Tiamat responded with formal deference. The Hollow Dragon King has initiated final phase boundary dissolution. So we perceive, rumbled another council member, this one bearing scales that resembled living flame. Multi-realm C. Catastrophe approaches critical threshold. Probability of complete dimensional collapse, 73% and rising. Tiamat guided Issei to the central dais. Place your Zanpakuto upon the pedestal, she instructed quietly. It will facilitate clear communication across species barriers. As Issei complied, Enryu's blade pulsed with recognition, resonating with the crystalline structure. Energy flowed between sword and pedestal, creating a harmonized field that suddenly rendered the dragon's complex multidimensional speech patterns comprehensible to his Shinigami consciousness. Issei Hyodo, intoned the midnight-scaled Ancient One, you stand at the nexus of prophecy and necessity. For 12 millennia, boundary keepers have maintained separation between realms, preserving the distinct evolution of each dimensional plane. Now, That separation faces existential threat from one who should have been its strongest defender. Vritra's transformation was unprecedented, added a silver-scaled council member. By consuming hollow essence, he gained the ability to devour spiritual boundaries themselves, converting their structural energy into personal power. With each boundary he destroys, continued a third dragon whose scales constantly shifted through prismatic patterns, his power grows exponentially. Already he has collapsed 3 minor dimensional pockets, absorbing their foundational energies. If he reaches the primary boundaries between major realms, Tiamat explained, the resulting merger will destroy most living entities across all dimensions. Only those with highly adaptive spiritual structures would survive, primarily dragons and hollows, reconfigured into a nightmarish hybrid ecology under Vritra's dominion. Why me? Issei questioned directly. Why I? A month-old dragon Shinigami hybrid crucial to stopping a being who overpowered the entire dragon realm. The Ancient One's multifaceted eyes studied him with evaluation that seemed to penetrate soul deep. Because where Vritra represents corrupted merger, dragon essence perverted by hollow hunger, you embody harmonious integration. Your soul has achieved what we believed impossible, perfect Balin. CE between draconic primal power and Shinigami ordered structure. You're not just a hybrid, Tiamat elaborated. You're a template. A living blueprint for how different spiritual energies can coexist without corrupting each other. That template, amplified properly, could theoretically stabilize the boundaries Vritra is destroying. Theoretically, Issei noted, catching the qualification. The process has never been attempted, admitted the flame-scaled dragon. It would require establishing resonance between your perfectly balanced spiritual pattern and the damaged boundaries, essentially us. In your soul structure as a repair template. What happens to me in this process? Issei asked, recognizing the conspicuous absence of this detail. The council members exchanged glances loaded with unspoken communication. Finally, the Ancient One answered with brutal honesty. Unknown. Best projection suggests survival with significant spiritual evolution. Worst projection indicates complete dissolution as your spiritual energy transfers to boundary repair. You're asking me to risk self-annihilation on the chance it might repair the boundaries, Issei summarized flatly. We ask you to fulfill the convergence prophecy. Corrected the prismatic dragon. Your existence is not coincidental, Issei Hyodo. The same cosmic forces that govern boundary maintenance engineered your unique spiritual configuration precisely for this moment. We believe you will survive, Tiamat added quietly. But cannot guarantee it. The choice must be yours. Freely made. Issei absorbed this information silently, the weight of multidimensional preservation settling on shoulders that had barely adjusted to division leadership responsibilities. Part of him, the part that had been an ordinary human Zhu weeks ago, wanted to reject the cosmic responsibility outright. Yet his essence, both dragon and Shinigami, recognized the truth in the council's words. If I agree, he said finally, what exactly would this process entail? Relief visibly passed through the assembled dragons at his tentative engagement rather than outright refusal. 3 phases, explained the Ancient One. First, complete awakening of your draconic abilities through sovereignty recognition ritual. Second, establishment of multi-realm alliance to combine power sources for boundary reinforcement. Third, direct confrontation Vritra at the primary boundary nexus, where you would establish resonance counteracting his corruption. Alliance between what realms, exactly? Issei questioned. At minimum, dragons and Shinigami, Tiamat responded. Ideally including representatives from all major dimensional planes, human world, Hueco Mundo, and the precipice realms. Soul Society has historical conflicts with several of those realms, Issei pointed out. Convincing the Captain Commander to ally with former enemies won't be simple. Extinction tends to clarify priorities, observed the flame-scaled dragon with grim humor. Even ancient enemies can become allies when facing shared annihilation. And the awakening ritual, what does that involve? Tiamat answered, formal recognition of your dragon lineage by the Sovereign Council. Activating dormant abilities currently inaccessible to your conscious control. Dragon lineage, Issei repeated, caught by the unexpected term. I thought my condition was the result of spiritual anomaly, not bloodline. The Ancient One's multifaceted gaze seemed to see through him to the foundations of his soul. Did you truly believe random chance created your unique spiritual configuration? Your family line has carried recessive dragon essence for 17 generations, dormant but preserved, waiting for the precise moment when cosmic necessity would trigger activation. You're saying I was always part dragon? Issei asked incredulously. That this was genetic destiny rather than supernatural accident. The boundary between accident and destiny is often a matter of perspective. Tiamat offered philosophically. What appears as chance from limited viewpoint reveals as pattern when observed across sufficient timescale. Before Issei could process the implications of his apparent draconic heritage, alarms sounded throughout the council chamber, crystalline tones that reverberated with urgency. The assembled dragons tensed collectively, scales shifting hues in response to whatever information the alarm conveyed. Vritra breaches the eastern boundary, announced the prismatic dragon. Accelerated timeline confirmed. Primary realm separation now projected to collapse within 12 hours. Not 48. We've run out of deliberation time, Tiamat stated, turning to Issei with intensity that burned away her previous diplomatic restraint. Decide now, convergence. Accept the awakening and face Vritra, or watch worlds die while maintaining personal autonomy. Put so starkly, the choice crystallized with painful clarity. Whatever risks the awakening posed to his individual identity. The alternative, standing aside while trillions of lives across multiple dimensions ended, was no choice at all. I accept the awakening, Issei declared, dragon essence Su. Rging within him in response to his decision. What must I do? The Ancient One rose to full height, dwarfing the central dais with his massive form. Stand ready, convergence. The sovereignty recognition begins. The 7 council dragons moved in perfect synchronization, each extending a massive foreclaw toward the central pedestal where Enryu rested. Energy flowed from their talons in distinct spectral signatures, converging on the Zanpakuto which absorbed the power like a conduit. The crystalline pedestal began to glow with increasing intensity, transforming into a column of pure spiritual energy that engulfed both sword and wielder. Within this column, Issei felt his spiritual structure changing, not violently but fundamentally, as if configurations that had always existed within him were finally activating. Dormant draconic abilities awakened in cascading sequence, enhanced sensory perception beyond even Shinigami capabilities, intuitive understanding of dimensional mechanics, connection to elemental forces that transcended conventional spiritual energy manipulation. Most significantly, his consciousness expanded exponentially, establishing connection with the vast network of boundary energy that permeated all dimensions. Through this connection, he sensed Vritra's corrupting presence immediately, a voracious void consuming the very fabric of reality, spreading outward from the eastern boundary of the dragon realm. The awakening reached crescendo as Enryu transformed in response to its wielder's evolution. The Zanpakuto's blade elongated and broadened, its hilt reconfiguring into a form resembling interlocked dragon talons, the guard expanding into wings that curved protectively around Issei's hand. Most dramatically, a second blade emerged from the pommel, creating a double-ended weapon that hummed with perfectly balanced spiritual energy, one blade channeling Shinigami power, the other draconic essence. As the energy column dissipated, Issei stood transformed. Crimson scales now covered portions of his exposed skin in elegant patterns that enhanced rather than distorted his human appearance. His eyes glowed with inner fire, pupils permanently shifted to draconic configuration. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonic undertones that resonated across multiple spiritual frequencies. The awakening is complete, the Ancient One declared. The convergence stands recognized by dragon sovereignty. Quote, Tiamat approached, her expression reflecting both approval and concern. How do you feel? Integrated, Issei answered truthfully, examining his transformed Zanpakuto with wonder. As if pieces that were always meant to fit together have finally aligned. The temporal window narrows, warned the flame-scaled dragon. Vritra approaches the nexus point between primary realms. If he breaches that boundary, recovery becomes impossible. I need to return to Soul Society immediately, Issei stated, newfound abilities already calculating optimal approaches to the crisis. Establish the alliance, gather representatives from each realm, and prepare for confrontation at the boundary nexus. I will accompany you, Tiamat declared, her tone brooking no argument. As former heir to dragon sovereignty, my presence lends legitimacy to alliance proposals. Additionally, my weather manipulation abilities may prove useful against my brother's corruption techniques. Though surprised by her self-invitation, Issei recognized the tactical advantage her presence would provide, both politically and in direct confrontation with Vritra. Agreed. Can you assist with interdimensional transit? In answer, Tiamat extended her hand, silver energy coalescing around her fingers. Dragon gates are more stable than Shinigami passages, she explained, drawing complex A turns in the air that solidified into an ornate archway, and considerably more precise in destination targeting. The Sovereign Council offered formal farewell as Issei and Tiamat prepared to depart. Remember, the Ancient One cautioned, Vritra cannot be reasoned with or redeemed. The hollow corruption has consumed whatever remained of his original nature. Only counterbalanced convergence can neutralize his threat permanently. With acknowledgement of this grim reality, Issei stepped through the Dragon Gate alongside Tiamat, reality shifting around them as they transitioned between realms. Unlike his journey to the Dragon Realm, this passage occurred with smooth efficiency, a testament to both Tiamat's skill and his newly awakened abilities. They emerged directly into Division 13's meditation chamber, where Kaori, Westcott, and Lieutenant Kano maintained vigilant observation. The monitoring equipment exploded in cascading alarms as their instruments detected unprecedented spiritual signatures manifesting within the carefully prepared circle. Captain, Kano exclaimed, Zanpakuto instantly drawn as Tiamat materialized alongside Issei. Unknown entity detected. Stand down, Lieutenant, Issei commanded, his transformed appearance momentarily stunning his subordinate into silence. This is Tiamat Vortex, Dragon Realm representative and crucial ally against the current crisis. Westcott recovered from surprise faster than the others, scientific curiosity overriding initial shock. Remarkable transformation, she observed, approaching cautiously to examine Issei's altered appearance. Complete integration of draconic features while maintaining Shinigami's spiritual structure. Perfect balancing rather than mere combination. Exactly the point, Tiamat confirmed, studying the human researcher with undisguised interest. You understand dimensional mechanics well for a material being. Dr. Elaine Westcott, Issei introduced. Expert in interdimensional physics and boundary mechanics. Her knowledge will be valuable for what comes next. Kaori, who had risen shakily from her monitoring position, stared at Issei with wide eyes. Your spiritual signature, it's beautiful, she whispered. Her phase shifter perception allowing her to see beyond physical changes to the perfectly harmonized spiritual pattern beneath. Like a mandala made of living energy. The convergence pattern, Tiamat identified. Regarding Kaori with sudden intensity. You perceive multidimensional structures directly. Another useful ally. Explanations will need to wait, Issei interjected, focusing on immediate priorities. Lieutenant, arrange emergency captain meeting immediately. Highest priority authorization. We have less than 12 hours before boundary collapse reaches critical threshold. As Kano moved to implement the order, Issei turned to Westcott. We need representatives from all realms at the boundary nexus to establish multi-dimensional resonance. Can your Kido Co. RPS connections help facilitate contact with human world spiritual authorities? The researcher nodded, already calculating approaches. Several organizations maintain awareness of dimensional matters. With Captain Hikafuna's authority, I can establish contact protocols immediately. Do it, Issei directed, before turning to Kaori. Your phase-shifting ability may prove crucial during boundary reinforcement. Are you stable enough to assist? Though still recovering, determination hardened Kaori's features. After what Arch did to me, I'll risk dissolution before letting them destroy everything by proxy. Count me in. Tiamat observed these exchanges with thoughtful assessment. You've cultivated capable allies in remarkably short time, convergence. A promising foundation for what's to come. As his team mobilized with focused urgency, Issei confronted the staggering reality of his position. In mere weeks, he'd transformed from ordinary human to interdimensional nexus point upon which the fate of multiple realms now pivoted. The weight should have felt crushing, yet his newly integrated nature seemed designed precisely for bearing such cosmic responsibility. Within hours, he would ace the corrupted reflection of his own potential, Vritra, the hollow dragon king whose perverted merger sought to consume rather than balance. The coming confrontation would determine not just his personal destiny but the fundamental structure of reality itself. As Division 13 headquarters erupted into strategic preparation, Issei sensed boundary tremors intensifying throughout Soul Society. Time contracted around them as cosmic forces accelerated toward inevitable convergence. The final phase had begun. The captain's meeting hall had never witnessed an assembly like the one currently gathered within its ancient walls. Beyond the full complement of Gote 13 leadership, representatives from multiple realms stood in uneasy alliance, human world spiritual authorities including Onmyoji masters and Western occult practitioners. Arankar emissaries from Las Noches maintaining careful distance from their traditional Shinigami enemies, Keto Corps commanders conferring with boundary specialists from the Precipice world. And most remarkably, 3 dragon representatives including Tiamat Vortex, who drew wary glances from the assembled captains. Captain Commander Yamamoto surveyed this unprecedented gathering with inscrutable expression, his ancient power held in careful check as historical adversaries stood together under temporary truce. At the center of the assembly stood Issei, his transformed appearance drawing whispers and speculative murmurs from those who had not witnessed the awakening firsthand. The situation has been explained, Yamamoto stated, bringing the chaotic exchange of information to immediate silence. Acting Captain Hyodo's proposal for multi-realm cooperation against the Hollow Dragon threat requires extraordinary measures that violate numerous long-standing prohibitions. His gaze swept across the assembly, spiritual pressure emphasizing the gravity of his next words. Yet the alternative, total dimensional collapse, leaves no room for traditional divisions. Therefore, by authority vested in me as Captain Commander of the Gote 13, I hereby authorize temporary alliance with all represented realms for the singular purpose of boundary preservation. The formal declaration sent ripples of response through the gathering, relief from some, resignation from others, calculated assessment from the more politically minded. Lieutenant Kuchiki, Repris, entering her division alongside Captain Kuchiki, studied Issei with barely concealed amazement at his transformation. Dr. Westcott, integrated with the human world representatives, exchanged significant glances with Kaori, who stood somewhat apart due to her unstable spiritual status. The plan, Yamamoto continued, will proceed as outlined. Representatives from each realm will accompany acting Cap. Toin Hyodo to the boundary nexus point where the Hollow Dragon's corruption has reached critical concentration. There, a multi-dimensional resonance field will be established using the convergence pattern as stabilizing template. Tiamat stepped forward, her regal bearing commanding attention despite the august assembly. Dragon Realm authorities have provided precise coordinates for the confrontation. Vritra will reach the primary boundary nexus within 5 hours. We must be positioned before his arrival to establish preliminary stabilization fields. Transport logistics, inquired Captain Sui Feng pragmatically. Dragon gates for primary transit, Tiamat explained. More stable than Senkaimon or Garganta when boundaries are compromised. Secondary access points will be maintained through GH Keto anchors should emergency extraction become necessary. Combat projections, Captain Zaraki asked, bloodthirsty eagerness poorly disguised as tactical inquiry. This isn't primarily a combat operation, Issei clarified. Though Vritra will certainly resist our efforts with force. The objective is boundary stabilization, not conventional victory through combat. Disappointing, Zaraki muttered, though he made no move to withdraw his division's support. Each realm's representatives will channel their distinctive spiritual frequencies through specialized conduits, explained Drive. Westcott, indicating the complex equipment being prepared by 12th Division technicians under Captain Kuritsuchi's supervision. Creating harmonic resonance that reinforces natural boundary structures while countering Vritra's corruption effect. Quote, the convergence pattern, here she nodded toward Issei, serves as the integration template, showing how different spiritual frequencies can coexist without merger or dominance hierarchies. And if Vritra overcomes our containment efforts? Captain Kuchiki asked, voicing the concern many harbored but few had articulated. Heavy silence followed the quest. Ion until Tiamat answered with draconic directness. Then all realms face dissolution into chaotic merger, with survival rates below 0.1% across all dimensional planes. The stark assessment eliminated further debate about participation. Whatever historical conflicts divided the assembled representatives, shared extinction proved a powerful motivator for temporary cooperation. Time grows short, Yamamoto declared. striking his staff against the floor with ceremonial finality. All representatives will proceed to the preparation area immediately. The operation commences in 1 hour. As the assembly dispersed toward designated staging areas, Issei found himself approached by Lieutenant Kuchiki, whose composed exterior barely contained evident concern. "Your transformation is extensive," she observed, studying his altered features with careful neutrality that failed to completely mask her fascination. "But not complete," Issei replied, understanding her unspoken question. "I'm still myself, Miyako. Just more so." Something softened briefly in her typically guarded expression. The Kuchiki historical records contain references to the previous convergence 12 millennia ago. None survived to record the final outcome. The implications hung unspoken between them, the likelihood that this mission represented a one-way journey for its central participant. "History doesn't always repeat exactly," Issei offered, touched by her evident concern despite her efforts to maintain professional detachment. "No," she agreed quietly. "Sometimes it improves upon revision." With formal precision that nevertheless conveyed genuine emotion, she added, "Return safely, Captain. Division 13 requires your leadership." Before he could respond to this unexpected sentiment from the typically reserved lieutenant, Miyako bowed correctly and departed, leaving Issei to contemplate the complex relationships he'd formed in his brief time in Soul Society. This contemplation was interrupted by Tiamat's approach, her expression suggesting she'd observed the exchange with interest. "The aristocratic Shinigami harbors feelings beyond professional respect," she noted with draconic directness. "As does the human researcher who keeps watching you while pretending to focus on equipment calibration. And the phase shifter barely conceals her attachment." Heat rose unexpectedly to Issei's face, his draconic features unable to completely mask human embarrassment. "It's complicated. Convergence attracts convergence," Tiamat observed cryptically. "Natural law manifesting through personal dynamics. Efficient design." Before Issei could decipher this enigmatic statement, Captain Kiraku joined them, his habitual relaxed demeanor tempered by the gravity of their situation. "The Captain Commander has requested private words before your departure," he informed Issei. "A rare honor, particularly for one so recently joined to our ranks." As Issei followed Kiraku toward Yamamoto's private chamber, he sensed the careful observation of multiple parties tracking his movement, some with concern, others with calculation, a few with emotions more complex and personal. Whatever the outcome of the coming confrontation, he had become a nexus point not just for dimensional forces but for the hopes, fears, and attachments of those he'd encountered since his transformation began. The responsibility settled on him not as burden but as purpose, a crystallization of meaning that transcended his former existence while somehow fulfilling potential that had always existed within him. Yamamoto awaited in meditation posture, ancient eyes opening as Issei entered the sparsely furnished chamber. "Sit," he commanded simply, indicating the cushion opposite his position. As Issei complied, the Captain Commander studied his transformed appearance with evaluation that seemed to penetrate beyond physical manifestation to the soul structure beneath. 12,000 years, Yamamoto stated after prolonged silence. "That is when the previous convergence occurred. I was young then, merely a century into my training as Shinigami. The Boundary War claimed many, including the untouched soul who sacrificed himself to preserve dimensional separation." Shock rippled through Issei at this casual revelation. "You witnessed the previous convergence personally." From distance, Yamamoto confirmed. "I was not yet powerful enough to participate directly. But I observed, and I remembered." The implications staggered consideration. Yamamoto had lived through 12 millennia of Soul Society history, his existence spanning epochs that human civilization could barely comprehend. The previous convergence succeeded in his mission, the ancient Shinigami continued, but at cost of complete spiritual dissolution. His pattern established the boundary preservation template that has maintained separation until now. "You're saying he died," Issei translated the euphemism. "His individual consciousness ceased," Yamamoto clarified, "though his spiritual energy persisted within the boundary structure itself. Some would consider this transcendence rather than death. Cold comfort to the consciousness that ended," Issei observed dryly. Unexpectedly, Yamamoto's weathered features shifted into something approximating a smile. "Indeed, which is why I have summoned you before departure." From within his robes, He withdrew a small crystalline object that pulsed with ancient power. This artifact dates from the original boundary establishment. It contains resonance patterns that may allow you to establish template without complete dissolution. Issei accepted the crystal with appropriate reverence, sensing the profound age and power contained within its structure. Thank you, Captain Commander. You have demonstrated exceptional adaptation to circumstances beyond reasonable expectation, Yamamoto stated, the closest thing to praise Issei had heard from the ancient leader. In recognition of this service to Soul Society, I hereby confirm your permanent appointment as Captain of Division 13, regardless of today's outcome. The formal acknowledgement caught Issei completely unprepared. Captain Commander, no response required, Yamamoto interrupted. The Haori awaits your return. Succeed in your mission, Captain Hyodo, and claim it properly. With this unexpectedly personal encouragement, Yamamoto dismissed him with a nod that somehow conveyed more emotion than Issei would have believed the ancient Shinigami capable of expressing. As he departed the private chamber, crystal carefully secured within his transformed uniform, Issei felt a curious lightening of spirit despite the grave mission ahead. He had arrived in Soul Society as anomaly and potential threat. He departed for the Boundary Nexus as recognized captain, supported by unprecedented multi-realm alliance. Whatever cosmic forces had engineered his transformation, they had placed him exactly where he needed to be. Surrounded by precisely the allies required for the coming confrontation. In the main preparation hall, those allies now gathered in final readiness, Westcott Calibrati. Dimensional stabilizers with 12th Division technicians, Kaori receiving specialized protective equipment designed to stabilize her phase shifting during boundary work, Lieutenant Kano organizing. Division 13 members who had volunteered for support operations despite the extreme danger, and Tiamat conferring with the Dragon representatives about gate establishment procedures. Most surprisingly, Miyako Kuchiki had apparently secured assignment to the mission, her presence explained by a communication device she handed to Issei upon his approach. Direct link to Captain Commander and Central 46. She explained professionally, I am assigned as communication officer for the duration of the operation. Though her explanation maintained perfect propriety, the slight softening around her eyes suggested motivations beyond mere duty assignment. Issei accepted the device with matching professionalism, though the brief contact of their hands conveyed understanding that transcended words. Final preparations complete, announced Tiamat, drawing attention to the center of the hall where an elaborate circular pattern now glowed with multispectral energy. Primary Dragon Gate established to Boundary Nexus coordinates. Transit will proceed in sequence by realm representation. As the various groups moved into position, Issei addressed the assembled alliance members one final time. Quote, what we attempt today has never been achieved through cooperative effort. Historical precedent relied on sacrifice rather than synthesis. But we possess advantages our predecessors lacked. His gaze moved across the diverse gathering. Acknowledging each faction, knowledge spanning multiple traditions, technology integrating different approaches to spiritual manipulation, and most importantly, willingness to transcend historical divisions for common preservation. Pretty speech, Tiamat observed with subtle humor, though dragons prefer action to rhetoric. Shall we proceed? With affirmative acknowledgement from all faction leaders, the transit sequence began. Dragon representatives entered the gate first, establishing stability parameters for those following. Arankar representatives followed, their hollow-influenced spiritual signatures requiring careful calibration to prevent boundary disruption during transit. Human world specialists proceeded next, protected by specialized equipment, and that maintained their physical integrity during interdimensional passage. Finally, Issei stood before the gate alongside Tiamat, Westcott, Kaori, and the Soul Society representatives including Miyako and Lieutenant Kano. The Boundary Nexus awaited, that crucial juncture where dimensions intersected at their most fundamental level, where Vritra would attempt final corruption of the cosmic architecture itself. Ready for convergence? Tiamat asked quietly, her question carrying layers of meaning beyond the immediate mission. Ready, Issei confirmed, Enryu pulsing with anticipation in its transformed configuration. Together, they stepped through the Dragon Gate, reality shifting around them as they transitioned not to any single realm but to the liminal space between all realms, the Bounda. Rai Nexus where existence itself would soon hang in precarious balance. The boundary nexus defied conventional perception. Neither solid location nor abstract concept but something between, it manifest. Edda's vast crystalline structure suspended in dimensional void, a cosmic lattice where reality streams intersected in complex geometric patterns. Pathways of pure energy formed bridges between junction points, each stream representing the fundamental spiritual frequency of its originating realm. The Alliance forces established position on a central platform that appeared to simultaneously exist in all connected dimensions. Overlapping realities creating visual distortion that challenged comprehension. Equipment deployed according to carefully calculated arrangements, creating a resonance field. Designed to amplify the convergence pattern when activated. Boundary degradation at 67% and accelerating, reported drive. Westcott, monitoring specialized instruments. Corruption spree. Ding along primary juncture lines from eastern quadrant. Vritra approaches. Tiamat confirmed grimly, her draconic senses detecting her brother's corrupted signature advancing through the dimensional lattice. Hollow hunger merged with dragon power, consuming boundary structures as he progresses. Issei moved to the center of the prepared formation, Enryu's transformed configuration humming in perfect resonance with the Nexus energies. The artifact Yamamoto had provided pulsed in synchronization, its ancient power recognizing the cosmic significance of their position. All representatives in formation, Lieutenant Kano reported with military precision. Resonance conduits aligned and calibrated. Awaiting initialization command. Before Issei could issue the order, reality shuddered around them, a violent distortion that sent cracks racing through the crystalline structure of the Nexus. Through these fractures poured corruption like liquid darkness, eating away at the boundary lattice with voracious efficiency. He's accelerated his approach, Tiamat warned, weather manipulation abilities already activating as storm energies gathered around her form. Defensive positions. From the largest fracture emerged a being that challenged sanity, dragon form corrupted by hollow essence, scales bleached bone-white and punctuated with hollow hole voids that leaked corrosive spiritual pressure. A mask resembling fused dragon and hollow features covered its face, eyes burning with hunger that transcended physical consumption to target existence itself. Convergence. The creature addressed Issei directly, voice distorted through layers of corrupted transformation. You arrive precisely as calculation predicted. Your pattern will complete my ascension. Vritra. Tiamat identified, Sil. Veer energy coalescing around her in protective configuration. Brother no longer. Only hollow remains. Sister mine. The creature acknowledged with terrible amusement. Still clinging to separation when union offers transcendence. Your short-sightedness denied our realm its rightful dominion over lesser dimensions. Your union brings extinction, not transcendence, Issei countered, channeling power through Enryu as the Alliance forces established preliminary defensive formation around the central platform. Consumption isn't merger, it's annihilation. Semantics. Vritra dismissed, corrupt. Ed energy pulsing outward in waves that accelerated the boundary degradation. All realms will contribute their essence to new cosmic order, my order. Those worthy will survive as components of greater whole. Initialization sequence active, Westcott announced, the resonance equipment beginning its carefully calibrated activation cycle. Establishing convergence field in 60 seconds. Vritra's corrupted form tensed, recognizing the threat to his plans. Prevent, he commanded, and from the fractures poured entities that defied classification. Hollow dragon hybrids of lesser power but considerable number. Each radiating corrupted essence that attacked the boundary structure directly. Defensive formation alpha, Lieutenant Kano ordered, Soul Society representatives moving with practiced Fasian C to intercept the hybrid threats before they could reach the central platform. Arankar allies engaged from opposite direction, their hollow-influenced abilities particularly effective against the corrupted minions. Miyako Flash stepped through the chaotic battle, her Zanpakuto releasing into Shikai form, an elegant blade that manipulated ice with lethal precision. Communication channels secure, she reported to Issei as she eliminated 3 attacking entities with a single frozen arc. Central 46 monitoring operation status in real time. Kaori, whose phase-shifting ability allowed to move through the dimensional battle with unique mobility, materialized beside Westcott to assist with equipment protection. Eastern Quadrant collapsing, she warned. Corruption spreading faster than predicted models. Vritra's presence accelerates the effect exponentially, Tiamat explained, weather manipulation creating lightning storms that temporarily disrupted the corruption flow through targeted fractures. We need convergence field established immediately. At the platform's center, Issei channeled power through both aspects of his dual nature, Shinigami precision directing Draco. Nick raw energy in perfectly balanced configuration. Enryu responded by splitting into its dual-blade manifestation, one blade radiating structured Shinigami Ryutsu while the other pulsed with primal dragon essence. Resonance conduits active, Westcott confirmed. Representatives, channel your realm's frequency on my mark. As she counted down, the representatives from each dimensional plane Cheoned themselves at designated points around Issei, each connecting to specialized equipment designed to amplify their native spiritual frequencies. Mark. Power surged through the formation as each representative channeled their realm's fundamental spiritual signature into the resonance conduits. Human world representatives provided material plane stability, Urankar contributed hollow realm chaotic energy. Shinigami supplied ordered spiritual structure, dragons added boundary reinforcement patterns, precipice world specialists contributed dimensional transit mechanics. These diverse energies flowed toward Issei at the configuration's heart, where his perfectly balanced convergence pattern would theoretically template how different spiritual frequencies could coexist without merger or dominance. The moment of truth had arrived. Vritra approaches central platform. Warned Kano as the Hollow Dragon King tore through defensive formations with terrifying ease, corrupted power growing with each boundary structure he consumed. Containment failing. Now, Issei, Tiamat shouted, summoning a massive lightning storm that temporarily slowed her corrupted brother's advance. Establish the template. Drawing on every aspect of his awakened abilities, Issei raised Enryu's dual blades overhead, crossing them to create intersection point through which the diverse energies could harmonize. The artifact from Yamamoto pulsed against his chest, ancient power activating in response to the cosmic configuration. As energies converged upon him, Issei experienced expanded awareness beyond eye visual consciousness, perception extending throughout the entire boundary network, witnessing simultaneously every intersection point between dimensions. Through this cosmic perspective, he understood completely what must be done. I am the convergence, he declared, voice resonating across multiple spiritual frequencies simultaneously. Where division ends and harmony begins. Power beyond comprehension surged through him as the template established, not by forcing dominant pattern but by demonstrating how different spiritual frequencies could maintain distinctiveness while existing in balanced relationship. Where Vritra sought to consume and dominate, Issei offered integration that preserved unique essence. The Nexus responded dramatically, damaged boundary structures beginning to regenerate according to the convergence template. Crystalline latticework repaired fractures, energy pathways re-established connections, corruption receding before the advancing harmonization field. Vritra's hollow mask features contorted in fury as he recognized the threat to his ambitions. With desperate intensity, he launched himself directly at Issei, corrupted claws extended to tear apart the convergence pattern at its source. You will not deny my ascension. The Hollow Dragon King roared, corruption concentrating into devastating attack formation. In that crucial moment, Issei's allies moved with perfect coordination. Tiamat summoning catastrophic lightning that temporarily disrupted her brother's momentum. Miyako Flash stepping into interception position, her ice Zanpakuto creating crystal line barrier that absorbed initial corruption impact. Westcott activating specialized boundary reinforcement technology that briefly stabilized the platform against Vritra's spiritual pressure. Kaori phase shifting to retrieve crucial equipment damaged during the assault. These precious seconds allowed Issei to complete the template establishment, convergence pattern expanding outward from his pos. Ishin to encompass the entire nexus structure. Where the pattern touched corrupted areas, harmony replaced consumption, not by destroying the corruption but by reintegrating its components into balanced relationship. Vritra howled in rage and desperation as the convergence pattern reached his corrupted form. You destroy transcendent potential. Perfect union dies with your enforcement of separation. Not separation, Issei corrected. Maintaining the template through sheer force of will as energies beyond mortal comprehension flowed through his spiritual structure. Harmonized distinctiveness. Unity without consumption. Balance without dominance. The artifact at his chest reached critical resonance, ancient power activating fully as it recognized the convergence pattern matching its original template from 12 millennia past. But where the previous convergence had required complete spiritual dissolution to establish the pattern, this implementation followed different mechanics. Issei's perfectly balanced nature allowing for template establishment without individual erasure. Light erupted from every junction point throughout the boundary nexus as the convergence pattern reached full implementation. Vritra's corrupted form convulsed as harmonization energy penetrated his spiritual structure, separating hollow consumption from draconic essence and rebalancing both according to their natural configurations. No, the hollow dragon king screamed, corruption fighting against harmonization. I will not be divided. Not division, Issei repeated, understanding flowing through him. As the ancient artifact's purpose revealed itself. Liberation from corruption, return to balance. With final surge of convergence energy, the process completed. Vritra's form separated into constant, unit elements. Purified dragon essence reforming according to its original nature while hollow aspects dissipated into energy that reinforced rather than consumed the boundary structures. Where the whole, low dragon king had stood moments before, a diminished but uncorrupted dragon now manifested. Vritra's original form before hollow corruption had twisted his nature toward consumption. Brother, Tiamat whispered, approaching cautiously as the battle subsided around them, Alliance forces securing the platform as boundary regeneration continued throughout the Nexus. The purified dragon regarded her, with confusion that slowly transformed into horrified recognition. What have I done? He questioned, memories of his corrupted actions apparently intact despite his restored nature. What hollow corruption compelled? Tiamat answered gently, not choice but consumption-driven compulsion. While this reunion unfolded, Issei maintained the convergence template, ensuring complete boundary regeneration throughout the Nexus. The incredible energies flowing through him should have caused spiritual dissolution according to all previous understanding of boundary mechanics, yet the ancient artifact from Yamamoto somehow provided protection, allowing him to template without self-destruction. Boundary integrity restoring at unprecedented rate, Westcott reported, monitoring equipment registering the widespread regeneration. 93% and climbing. The convergence pattern is self-propagating through the entire network. Kaori, materializing beside Issei after completing her phase-shifted equipment retrieval, studied him with unique perception. Your pattern, it's not just repairing the boundaries. It's improving them, creating more stable configurations than existed before. Lieutenant Kano approached with formal report posture that barely contained evident amazement. All hostile entities neutralized, sir. Alliance representatives report successful integration of their respective energies into the convergence template. Central 46 acknowledges operation success beyond projected parameters. As the immediate crisis subsided, Issei gradually reduced power flow through the convergence template, allowing the self-propagating pattern to complete boundary restoration independently. Enryu returned to its single-blade configuration, though permanently transformed by the awakening and template establishment. Miyako approached, composed exterior barely containing evident relief at his survival. Captain, she acknowledged formally, though her eyes conveyed far more than her words. Division 13 awaits your return. Tiamat joined them, her brother following with evident regret shadowing his restored features. The Sovereign Council reports complete boundary restoration throughout Dragon Realm sectors. She announced, your convergence pattern has established new stability paradigm that should prevent similar corruption attempts for millennia to come. Not my pattern, Issei corrected, feeling the weight of cosmic responsibility beginning to lift as the template completed its network-wide implementation. Our pattern, created through multi-realm cooperation rather than individual sacrifice. An important distinction, Westcott agreed, joining their growing circle as Alliance members gathered around the central platform. And one that creates interesting possibilities for future interdimensional relations. As representatives from various realms exchanged tentative communications that would have been unthinkable before their shared crisis, Issei B served with quiet satisfaction the foundations of understanding beginning to form. Where boundaries had previously meant isolation and separation, they might now represent interfaces for controlled interaction. Distinct realms maintaining their unique natures while engaging in mutually beneficial exchange. The Captain Commander will expect detailed report, Miyako noted, practical considerations returning as immediate danger faded. Central 46 as well, added Kano. Though they may struggle to process the full implications of what's been accomplished here. Let them struggle, Tiamat suggested with draconic directness. Growth requires challenge to established understanding. All realms must adapt to new boundary paradigm, one that allows for connection without corruption. Kaori, who had remained silently observing nearby, approached with tentative question. What happens now? To me, I still phase between states involuntarily. Your condition provides unique opportunity, Westcott suggested. With properly calibrated training, you could potentially serve as interdimensional liaison, a natural boundary walker with conscious control rather than involuntary shifting. Under Division 13's jurisdiction, Issei added, decision forming naturally. Our mandate includes anomaly investigation and boundary monitoring. Your abilities align perfectly with our responsibilities. Hope flickered across Kaori's features, the first genuinely positive emotion she displayed since her rescue. You mean, I could have purpose, use what was done to me for something meaningful. More than meaningful, Issei confirmed. Essential. The new boundary paradigm will require individuals capable of moving between realms without disruption. Your phase shifting, once stabilized and controlled, represents exactly that capability. As their discussion continued, Arankar representatives approached with formal acknowledgement of alliance obligations fulfilled, requesting protocols for future communication should boundary concerns require additional cooperation. Human world specialists similarly established preliminary framework for ongoing monitoring collaboration, with Westcott D. assignated as primary liaison between spiritual authorities. Dragon representatives, led by Tiamat and the restored Vritra, proposed more comprehensive alliance, not merely emergency cooperation but established diplomatic channels between traditionally separated realms. The convergence pattern demonstrates that distinctiveness need not prevent harmony, Tiamat observed, her political acumen emergent. G is the crisis resolution created opportunity for long-term planning. Each realm maintains its essential nature while benefiting from controlled interaction. A revolutionary proposal, Miyako noted. Noble upbringing making her particularly sensitive to political implications. One that challenges centuries of established separation protocols. All protocols require periodic reassessment, Issei responded. Newfound confidence stemming from both his permanent captain status and the cosmic perspective gained through convergence template establishment. Division 13 stands ready to facilitate interdimensional diplomacy alongside our traditional boundary monitoring duties. As the Alliance began coordinated withdrawal from the Nexus, danger passed but much work remaining to implement He knew boundary paradigm. Issei found himself momentarily alone with Tiamat as others prepared transportation arrangements. You'll return to Dragon Realm? He inquired, sensing her divided priorities. Temporarily, she confirmed. The Sovereign Council requires first-hand report, and Vritra's restoration creates complicated succession questions that demand attention. With uncharacteristic hesitation, she added, but diplomatic responsibilities will require regular visitation to Soul Society. As former heir with boundary expertise, I am logical choice for Dragon Realm representative. The political justification barely masked personal interest that Issei had begun to recognize despite his previous obliviousness to such signals. Before he could formulate appropriate response, Westcott approached with final equipment readings. Fascinating implications for future research, the scientist observed, handing him data tablet displaying convergence pattern analysis. With your permission, I'd like to establish permanent research station within Division 13 grounds. The Keto Corps has authorized my transfer to Soul Society as special consultant for boundary mechanics. Another logical appointment, Tiamat noted with subtle humor, exchanging knowing glance with Westcott that suggested the human researcher's motivations might extend beyond purely scientific interest. Before this increasingly complicated conversation could develop further, Lieutenant Kano interrupted with welcome practicality. Transport preparations complete, sir. Soul Society contingent awaits your command for departure. Excellent timing, Lieutenant, Issei acknowledged gratefully. Let's return home. The word, home, emerged naturally yet significantly. Soul Society, once alien realm of forced residence, had transformed into something he claimed willingly. Division 13, initially reluctant command, had become his purpose and responsibility. The boundary between outsider and belonging had shifted, as completely as the cosmic boundaries he'd helped restore. As they prepared for transit back to Soul Society, Issei observed the various representatives exchanging final communications, tentative foundations for ongoing cooperation where historically only conflict or avoidance had existed. The convergence had altered more than just dimensional boundaries, it had shifted philosophical boundaries between traditionally opposed factions. Miyako approached as Dragon Gate preparations neared completion. Captain Commander transmitted formal notification during boundary restoration, she informed High M with subtle warmth breaking through her composed exterior. Division 13's Captain Howery awaits your official installation ceremony. Will you attend, Lieutenant Kuchiki? Issei asked, the invitation carrying implications beyond mere professional courtesy. The Kuchiki family will certainly send representation, she replied formally, before adding with barely perceptible softness, I have requested to attend personally. The exchange, though outwardly maintaining appropriate protocol, represented significant evolution in their complex relationship, rigid formality gradually yielding to genuine connection that honored traditional boundaries while allowing meaningful exchange across them. Similar dynamics had developed with Westcott, whose scientific objectivity had progressively NCED with personal investment in both the boundary crisis and its central figure. Kaori's relationship with Issei carried different complexities, rescuer and rescued evolving toward mutual respect and potential partnership in boundary understanding. Most unexpected was Tiamat's interest, draconic directness making her intentions more transparent than her human counterparts despite shorter acquaintance. As Dragon Realm representative to Soul Society, her ongoing presence promised further development of this nascent connection. As the Dragon Gate activated for return transit, Issei recognized he had become nexus point not just for interdimensional forces but for complex personal relationships spanning multiple realms. The convergence that had balanced dragon essence and Shinigami spirit within him now extended outward, creating connections that maintained appropriate boundaries while allowing meaningful exchange. Ready for return transit, Captain? Kano inquired as Alliance members began their carefully sequenced departure through their respective dimensional pathways. Ready, Lieutenant, Issei confirmed, the title of captain settling comfortably after Yamamoto's permanent confirmation. As Soul Society representatives gathered for synchronized transit, Issei cast final glance across the boundary nexus, now restored and strengthened according to the convergence template. What had begun as personal crisis of identity had transformed into cosmic opportunity for harmonic integration rather than forced merger. Balance, he had learned, did not mean stasis or perfect equilibrium. It meant dynamic relationship between distinct elements, each contributing essential qualities to create something greater than isolated components without sacrificing their fundamental nature. This understanding firmly integrated into both personal identity and cosmic implementation, Issei stepped through the Dragon Gate alongside his allies, returning to Soul Society not as anomaly to be contained but as captain whose unique nature represented template for new understanding of boundaries, both dimensional and personal. The convergence had only just begun. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.